When Facebook went public, I didn't get in because I'm like, I don't understand the business model. I'm like, where are the revenues here, you know? Then suddenly one day it was like, oh, that's where it's coming from. The blockchain comes along and turns everything on its head. So you can either say, well, I don't understand, you know, a digital rose, you know, these NFTs, 2019, they sold it for $1 million. You can either say, this is ridiculous, and you can throw out, you know, the baby with the bathwater, or you can say, how can I take advantage of this trend?
No one's going to walk into a room and say, yeah, I've been trading crypto for 35 years, and it's so new that really everyone's a student. But here's the good news. You have a little bit of time to learn these skills and to get serious about your financial education and learn this stuff because it's still in its infancy. The Fed likes to manipulate the money supply. How easily are they going to allow a global currency to circumvent them before they say, no, because it's not just about money, it's about power. And so I feel an urgency where I'm reading and I'm listening to podcasts to get as much as I can because I can feel it. The world's changing, huge.
Bitcoin and Ethereum have faster adoption rates and better network effects than any other asset that has ever been seen. That is why they are just plowing money into this asset class, because they see the growth that is happening. The more people, again, that come into the network, the more valuable the network becomes, which means the more valuable the token that runs the network becomes. I really started to see what was possible with Ethereum, that this wasn't just a token that was being traded, that this was a programmable smart contract system, and this was going to revolutionize every single aspect of the world.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Crypto Revealed. I am really excited to take this journey with you. I have friends and acquaintances that have graduated from prestigious universities with degrees in finance and economics, and when it comes to crypto, they seem kind of confused. And if they're confused, I imagine the rest of us are too. We hear things like, crypto is the future. Now is time to get in. You'll be still on the ground floor. You can put your investment dollars into crypto, and in the future, you're going to be very wealthy as a result. And then other people who say, crypto is based on vapor. There's no reality to it. This is all hype. And that anybody who puts their money into this is going to fall prey to a scheme that is never going to last. And then you hear everything in between. It's a very confusing world. It's not a simple thing to understand necessarily, but I can tell you, after now having done the interviews for this entire docuseries, that by the time you're done watching this series, you're going to know more than the vast majority of the people in the world about crypto, what type of investments and opportunities it holds for you, the right way to approach it, what the potential risks might be, the difference between Bitcoin and all these other so-called altcoins, etc. We cover it all. We go in depth. We speak to some of the best experts in the world, and I have to tell you, it's a thrill ride. It captures the imagination. It's something that I believe people need to be paying attention to now, and what I love about it is that it is for everybody, meaning this world isn't just for the elite, the people who have a lot of money, the people who study finance and economics. It is for everybody and anybody. The opportunity to understand and invest or trade and grow wealth in crypto, I believe, is here. But you have to understand it. You can't just jump in blindly. And that's why we made this docuseries for you. One of the things I'm going to ask that you do, we're just getting started now, and we're in our free viewing period. You probably have friends or family members that probably care about this. As a matter of fact, one of the things I learned is that when you have kind of a study buddy, somebody that you can go through this experience with and discuss it and process it, you'll find out that you're going to deepen your knowledge, deepen your wisdom and your understanding. So please, This is free to watch. Share it with people that you know. Go out and share it far and wide. Let them know about this. Maybe even post it on your social media. We want to have as many people in the world learn what we learned through the process of creating this docuseries. And as always, if you find that you want to actually own this, it's available for you. You can see the varying packages that we have available. Go ahead and take a look. But for right now, I'm excited just to jump into episode 1, let you know about what this world is like. We have some amazing presenters and people that I interviewed that really give deep insight, but they do so in an understandable way. So thanks for being here with me. This is going to be a wonderful ride we're going to take together. Let's jump right into episode 1 of Crypto Revealed. You know, when you want to peek behind the curtain a little bit when we're creating a series like this, one of the things that we know is that somebody may have a lot of expertise, but they could be maybe a little bit boring to listen to, and you never know what you're going to get till you sit down and do the interview. Well, with my next interview, Marcus DeMaria, let me tell you, he's the exact opposite of that. This guy is engaging, he's energetic, he is smart, and he is easy to learn from, meaning he's got a way of communication that gets things to sink into your brain. So he's a really unusual talent when it comes to communicating the possibilities when it comes to crypto and trading crypto, which a lot of people say you can't do because of the volatility. Well, Marcus sees it differently, and I have to tell you, I learned a lot from him. I got my sons watching him and learning about what he does because I think he really has a great handle on this. So check out my interview with Marcus DeMaria. Marcus, thanks for taking the time to sit and have this conversation. I know you're a bit jet lagged. Where are you coming back from?
Well, I'm actually just coming back from Greece where all the fires were. But for some reason, I'm just really sleepy. I don't know why. Like I literally had to wake up to get here.
I know it's the end of the day where you are. It's the morning for me, and it's the end of the day where you are. So maybe you had an exciting day. Who knows? But let's start with your background. What got you into doing what you're doing?
So basically, I was in a pretty well-paid job, but I hated it because my boss left and a new boss came along, and he was a total and utter beep. And everybody left apart from me because I'm one of those faithful kind of stay there types. But I got really ill because of the pressure, because I didn't really want to be there. Long story short, I left not really knowing what I wanted to do because I went on this seminar. And it's probably everybody's story because it's a Tony Robbins seminar back in '99. And the guy on stage in 3.5 days kind of says, you're in control of your own life and you can do what you want. And I was like, really? And it seems so obvious now. And I don't know why it takes other people to tell you what you innately already know. But anyway, so then he always says, when you make a decision, make a massive step towards it. So I left a message for my boss saying I had to speak to him the next day. But then as soon as I left the message, I was like, oh no, what have I done? And you try and recall the message, like on Outlook, you can do that, right? Back in '99, you couldn't do stuff like that. This was a payphone. I mean, we're going back some. And then the next day, my boss kind of said, oh, Marcus, I got your message. You wanted to talk. And I was like, nope, that wasn't me. And he said, no, I got your message. So anyway, so I went in, and long story short, I fired my boss, and it was the best thing I ever did. But that's not to say that it all has been like this. It's been a bit of a roller coaster because then I didn't know what I was going to do. And around that time, I started learning how to invest and trade. I'm very much self-taught, although I have been to every single course out there. Some of them were really okay. Some of them were really good. Some of them not so good. And it took me years and years just to stop losing money. Because everybody kept talking about strategy number 41, strategy number 43, but they didn't tell you about the most important thing, which is risk management. In other words, how not to lose money. And that's what we're really big on is, first of all, keep your money safe, because when you keep your money safe, then the profits will come. But if you lose all your money, then you're out of the game.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into this. And then about 5-6 years later, I started teaching friends and family. And then, that's how it built. And then my wife kind of said, she said, what are you doing? Why are these people keep coming around at a weekend? And she said, get out, and if you're going to do this, then, hire a place. And I didn't want to start a business. I just didn't want to use the money that I had in my trading account.
Right.
And so we started teaching people. So that's how I got into this, the kind of the workshop-y, teaching people how to trade and invest. So our background very much has been really investing and then trading stocks. And I think it was around 2016 when people kept, asking me, oh, what about these digital currencies? And I was like, what are you talking about? What I'm teaching you, this is what works, What about Bitcoin? Like, Bitcoin, come on, you can't even touch it, And then somebody said to me, that's great, Mr. De Maria, that's great. But can I ask you, why not? And I didn't have an answer, right? Because I kept going, this is ridiculous, but I didn't know why. I just knew that this worked, what I was teaching, but not necessarily this other stuff, And then I did a deep dive into it, and I couldn't believe it. I had left literally hundreds of thousands of percent on the table. And we're talking about millions of dollars. And I was really ashamed because I told people not to do it. Think about it, how much money they would have, since 2016, how much money they could have made. So that was bad. So I don't feel great about that. But anyway, so then we started teaching people as well how to do it.
When it comes to trading crypto, do you trade just Bitcoin, or do you trade other coins also?
Well, mainly what we do is investing. And the reason we mainly do it, but we do trading as well, but for more advanced people, because I think as soon as you get into trading and leverage and stop losses and things like that, cryptos is just way too volatile for that, way too volatile. So what we basically do is we just use something called value cost averaging, where we just basically buy on the dips. Because we know in the long term, we know that it's something that's going to go up. It's got upward pressure.
Yeah.
Like if you talk about foreign exchange trading, it doesn't really have upward pressure. It could go down or up. But with Bitcoin, because of the scarcity, because there's only 21 million that will ever be mined, there's real scarcity there, and the supply is going down and down and down, and the demand is going up and up and up. So we know that it's going to go up over time. And even when it has these crazy dips, and I mean crazy dips where people are running for the hills, that's when we're buying. You need to be really strong. And that's why, you can teach people anything, but if you don't teach them about the mindset and psychology behind it, doesn't matter how strong they are, they're going to at some stage they're going to start second guessing the strategy, then they're going to stop. So we teach both how to invest and trade, but also the mindset behind it as well. So important.
Yeah, because I think, when you talk about risk management, which becomes essential, and you have the wild swings like you do in crypto or Bitcoin specifically, and I'm invested in 4 different coins now. But I'm a long-term investor. I don't trade it, and most of the conventional people are saying, don't trade it, right? That because of the volatility. Because I guess in risk management, if I'm understanding what you're saying properly, is that you put stop losses in, to say, hey, if it goes down a certain amount, you're out. But it's probably hitting those every single day, so that risk management strategy doesn't work for this level of volatility, right?
It really doesn't. I mean, there are people that can make it work, but because obviously we're teaching people who are just starting out, and to teach them that at this level, no way. Yeah. They're just not ready for it.
So you started to describe something I think that's very important, which is saying that there's Bitcoin in essence is a scarce resource, meaning that there's a limited number that will ever be. And you feel that there's an upward pressure, meaning you feel like more people are going to come into the fray and start to buy it up, create more demand on limited supply, which has to drive the price up. So do you see that it's ever going to take big swings down again? Or do you think that there's enough momentum and pressure now that it might dip a little, but it's never going to do one of these 50% dips like it did recently?
Because there are so many of these swings, yes, it will in its cycle. There's a 4-year cycle. In its cycle, it will have maybe a bear market, which isn't really a swing, it's a bear market, right? So it could come down maybe 60, 70, maybe even 80%. But the general little dips that it has, I think that volatility will be less and less. I really do.
Okay.
And that's because people are, holding or hodling, as everybody calls it, more and more. But also think about this, the institutions are getting in more and more. Now, institutions, they know what they're doing, right? So they're not just going to panic and sell immediately. They go, yeah, we've seen this all before. Whereas somebody who's new thinks, oh, I'm going to make some money here by buying Dogecoin or whatever, right? Which is quite speculative. As soon as it goes down, they'll do the classic buy high and sell low. So, and that creates that volatility. But as the institutions get in increasingly, and we're seeing it, that I think will mean that there's going to be less volatility. Yeah.
Is it being manipulated, the market? Are there big players or institutions that are driving the price up? Kind of attracting a bunch of small fish in to say, oh, I'm going to get involved, and then they're dumping. And so is that happening right now?
Of course, manipulation happens in every market, and just as the whales, which I think if you have over 10,000 Bitcoin or something, you're deemed a whale. They will, all pile in, and then, they'll band together in little groups, and then, they'll move the market, shaking people out, the so-called weak hands, that they go, oh, I just wanted to get in and make a quick buck, and boom, down it goes, and then they sell. So it's being manipulated all the time, but also the institutions, because look, the institutions are there for one reason and one reason only. And that is to make as much money as possible. So I don't know whether you want me to name any names exactly, but there are some very, very well-known funds that will kind of come out and say, oh, I think Bitcoin is going to go to, 200,000. And then literally 2 days later, because they've just realized, hold on a moment, we don't have enough Bitcoin. We got to drive the price down. So then they'll say, oh, actually, I think it's going to go to 20,000 first. Now, when a well-known institution says that, generally speaking, people do tend to listen. And so you will see, price movements up to minus 20%, and then they'll get in. To me, I don't know whether that's illegal. It should be illegal, but it's definitely unethical and immoral. For me, that's what I think anyway.
I agree with you. So I would love for you to name names, please.
Well, it's very well known, 2017. And after that, Jamie Dimon, everybody knows that the JP Morgan traders, apparently he said, if any of my traders, get caught buying Bitcoin or trading Bitcoin, they'll be instantly fired. It's on public record that the traders were the ones from JP Morgan were buying the most when he made that statement, because when he makes a statement like that, it does drive prices down.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is, this is not anything that's new. It's not like, oh, look what's happening over there in cryptocurrency. This happens all the time. It's nothing new, So
basically, we don't have the ability to fight those whales, right, or to compete with them. But I guess what we can do, it's like the fish that hang on to the whale as they're swimming through the water. I mean, so what's the strategy? Yeah, so tell me about that.
Take advantage of it. Take advantage, which is what I wanted to talk about your strategy. Because when you say buy and hold, that's amazing. But how about doing something whereby when there is a dip, just buying a little bit more if it's below your price in order to bring your average price down, right? So if it's at 62,000 and it goes to 29, or let's say 30,000, just for even numbers, I mean, it's like, okay, am I the only one seeing this? I mean, it's like you go into a shop, you're just about to buy some jeans, and the assistant goes, we have a sale tomorrow. Yeah. You don't go, it doesn't matter, I'll buy full price. You go, okay, I'll phone up tomorrow, because it's half price, and then you get in. So actually, I have nothing against the whales, actually. Okay. As long as at some stage, the long-term bull market continues, and we are. I mean, since its inception in 2008, and going live in 2010 with the first transaction, we are in a massive bull market. Yes, there are massive, minus 89%, minus 73%. Just the other day, minus 50%. Sure, but long term, and that's amazing. So what we basically do is we do what I think every good kind of investor does. I think, which is as it goes down, you buy. Making sure, and more each time we put 25% more in. But we don't just buy the same amount. That would be like a kind of a dollar cost averaging. We do something called value cost averaging, which means when it goes down to a certain point, we know the point in advance. You don't react. You don't go, there's no knee-jerk reaction. We know in advance all the different points. And we go in with more money to bring our price down even more. Then as you get into profit, you start selling, right? Timing the market and getting out right at the top is not something that I can do And quite frankly, why not leave something for somebody else?
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. You know, how much money do you want, you know?
Yeah, well, so just two things. I'm going to ask you a question about what you just said in a moment. But since I started to describe some of my, some of my personal activities, number one, I'm probably 20% of my total investments that I would make is in crypto. So I'm not like all in on crypto, but it's about 20, maybe 25%.
And by the way, a lot of people would listen to that right now and go, 20%, but I'm with you, man. It's good.
It's a little aggressive. But secondly, I also was in early enough that I don't know that they'll ever pull back to where I started. So when I'm, I dollar cost average, I'm actually increasing when I'm buying, but I am also looking for those dips and then kind of getting more. But I was in, so we're like some of mine are 10x, from what I got in at. So it's just, so I'm never going to be able to lower
but then
that cost.
all you do is the money that you'll have coming in on a monthly basis. Most people have a job or something, coming in. What you do is then, because you said you're in 4, right? But there are some good ones out there. There's more than 4 good ones out there. So you just wait for a pullback, the ones that you've always wanted to be getting into, but they're so high. You wait for their pullback, right? And then you start doing that.
So let me ask about this. So two things. So let's follow up on that, and then I'm going to circle back to how you find your marks as to where you're buying. But let's first start with, okay, there's lots of good coins. So tell me about the coins that are on your radar right now.
Obviously not recommendations, because this changes all the time. Almost every 6 months something could change, or earlier actually. So for me, obviously, my biggest holding is actually Ethereum. It used to be Bitcoin, but it's now been overtaken by Ethereum. I also really like Chainlink. I really like Polkadot, or the big ones. I might be an investor stroke trader, but I don't like risk.
Well, you just named my 4, incidentally, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah? Well, that was just a lucky guess, But then there's some other ones, some interesting ones. You've got to diversify a little bit into and put less money in. The way I look at it, you put the most money into the safe ones, if there's any such thing, right? Because we are talking about cryptos, into, some that are a little bit more speculative, like Engine Coin, for example, which is really used for gaming a lot. So there's a use case there, and then maybe Theta. Some of the YouTube guys are in Theta, and what they basically have is they have the patent for decentralized streaming. Well, that's interesting. If they're the only ones that are able to do that, that's it. Because I always said, look, I missed out on Facebook, right at the beginning. I missed out on, I don't know, whatever, Netflix, Google, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. But what we're looking for, right, in the club is we're looking for the Amazon of blockchain, the Facebook of blockchain, the Netflix of, I don't want to miss those. Right. So, you said you're in 4. I'm probably in about 80, because I don't know which one is, obviously with not large amounts of money necessarily, but because I don't know which one is going to be the next Amazon. I don't know which one's going to be the next Apple. I just don't know. Another one that I like is Voyager, for example. This is one that's looking to take on Coinbase. Coinbase, of course, is the exchange which is the largest in the UK. Went public, which is good, right? Because now everyone's like, oh, a public company and it's crypto, so that's interesting. And, we did a strategy where we kind of feathered in, as they call it, in the city. And we're in minus at the moment. But because, and I knew this would happen, right? What people think is that because it's an exchange and it's got something to do with cryptos, and as the crypto market goes down, Coinbase must suffer. No, Coinbase doesn't suffer. Every time you buy and every time you sell, they're a broker, right? They're making money. They don't care whether you're losing money or not. They just make money left, right, and center. So, and they just kind of, this dates it a little bit, I guess, but it just announced their earnings, and the earnings are off the chart, Wow. So it just jumped up. So it'll only be a couple of weeks before we'll be in profit, what you've got to do is you've got to spend 20 minutes a day. I don't know whether you think that's a long time or not. 20 minutes a day researching, reading, listening to coins, Why is this one good? Why could this be? How many people are using it? Is there a use case? Is the management team good or not? All of those things. Is it solving a problem? All of those good things. And then get in. And then when you believe in it, as it goes down, lower your average price. But you've got to believe in it. So, don't just get into the latest thing like, I don't know, some of these new coins all with dogs on them, because that's speculative. Yeah, but you don't know what they do.
That's
There's no management team behind there. The people that invented it have long gone. Well, that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yep.
Why are you investing in something where the people who invented it aren't even involved anymore? Why would you do that? Just because, and that's the difference between speculating, which we don't do, and investing. One has rules, the other one doesn't have any rules. There are basically 5 rules, right? You've got to know which one to get into. Do your research, 20 minutes a day, that's all, it doesn't matter when, any time, you know? Then you've got to know when to get in, what price. You've also got to know when to get out with a loss. Hopefully small loss. You've got to also know when to get out with a big loss. You know, we milk the cow every time it goes up by 100%. Every time it's 100%, we milk that cow. You know, we go moo. You know, we milk that cow. You got to milk that cow. You can't see it go all the way up and see it all come all the way back down. That would be terrible. So you got to milk that cow as it goes up, right? And then the last thing is, how much money do you invest? You know, people say, I'm going to put 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here. Well, why did you just do that? You know, what was the reason for that? You know, so. Because it depends if you're trading and investing and all this kind of stuff. It's a little bit complicated, but it's very simple, by the way, but it's not easy.
All right, understood. Let me ask this question. So you started to describe how some of these coins have utility, whether it be for decentralized streaming, for example. Ethereum's, you know, there's certain people using their platform to, you know, to do certain projects, as well as several other coins. But the way that this is structured, in other words, if that was a business and I was buying their stock, that business would generate revenue, have profitability, and, you know, and I'm kind of investing in that. Is there, with coins or, you know, with things, with any of these cryptos, is there revenue that's generated from, you know, the platforms that they built, you know, from these blockchains that come in and somehow, you know, get distributed, or what happens there? How does that work? Because it's not the same as investing in companies.
So that's interesting. So that's why I like Voyager, because Voyager, the Voyager coin, and Binance coin, one of my biggest holdings is Binance as well, is because it's the token which is used on the exchanges, Binance and Voyager. So there's real revenue coming into those companies, right? For the others, though, you have a great point. You know, where is the business model? Like I remember when Facebook went public, I didn't get in because I'm like, I don't understand the business model. I had to totally reprogram myself because I've been trading for 21 years. I'm like, where are the revenues here? You know, and I had to reprogram myself. And the way to look at it really is to say this. I'm going to ask you a question if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, who is the inventor of the internet? Basically, HTTPS, the protocol. It was a guy, a Brit, who worked for CERN. His name was Tim Berners-Lee. Okay. Now you don't know him,
right?
And no one knows him. Now let me ask you another question: who is the creator of Facebook?
Mark Zuckerberg.
It's Mark Zuckerberg. Now, how come you know him and you don't? You might not even use Facebook, but I bet you use the internet. We're probably using it now, right?
Yep.
It's because on the internet, the protocol isn't what captures the value. What captures the value is the applications that are on top. So the Netflixes, the YouTubes, the Googles, the Amazon, everything that's on top, they're the ones. So I might be watching some kind of a marketing or advertisement on YouTube. Okay. So who gets the money? The internet? No, it's the owners that get paid. So the YouTube people get paid, right? Suddenly the blockchain comes along and turns everything on its head. Now, this is really interesting because suddenly the protocol is actually what captures most of the value. Yes, the DApps, the decentralized applications that are on top, they also have a lot of value and they could grow massively. So let's take Ethereum as an example. Why is it my largest holding at the moment? The reason is because most of the applications are on this protocol called Ethereum. So the NFTs, right? The non-fungible tokens, the decentralized finance, the DeFi are on Ethereum. Most of them are on Ethereum. And that's why Ethereum is the second largest. And some people are thinking it's going to become the largest. And then there might be another one, right? This is early days. Right. By market capitalization, which of course is price times the amount of tokens that are out there. So what does that mean? That means suddenly you have just changed the paradigm. That means the value is in eyeballs. How many users are actually on there? All the rest of it comes later. And honestly, I'm with you because I was like, really like, where's the revenue, dude? Show me the revenue. Because as an investor, I need to see the value. But once I understood that paradigm, it's like, okay, so I need to change it slightly.
Well, going back to your analogy, saying, look at Facebook, it's worth all this money, it doesn't even generate any revenue, right? But Facebook had a bank account, and Facebook, eventually said, hey, if we have an audience, we'll figure out how to monetize it, right? But I don't know, is there any plan, let's stick with Ethereum, but is there any plan for Ethereum to actually start to have its own revenue? And since it's decentralized, who makes the decisions and where's that revenue go if it even comes in? Because it doesn't seem like there's an entity there. It's it's an open thing that anybody, like you're saying, like the internet. It's like it's the protocol, and then everybody else makes money off the protocol, but the protocol doesn't make money. So then that's the thing I've always struggled with, saying it's great it's being used, but at what point does it say that its use can translate into value for the coin itself? And that's where I still struggle trying to figure that out.
I struggle with that as well. I actually don't have an answer to that, but just like Facebook at the time, I didn't quite understand like where's the money coming from. And then suddenly one day it was like, oh, that's where it's coming from, and now I use it, in terms of marketing and everything. And maybe they will find a way of doing that. And I'm sure they will find a way. If you think about all the eyeballs that are on Ethereum, if they wanted to monetize it, they could do it like that. But I think they're doing what Amazon is doing. Think about Amazon. Amazon for years and years and years, yes, they had revenue, but did they have profit? No, they didn't have profit. Why? Because they were looking to do what? They were looking to dominate everything. They weren't just looking to dominate books. They were looking to dominate everything, right? That's what Jeff Bezos wanted. And he's pretty much achieved that. Now, what's really interesting is that even today, it's not the Amazon.com that everybody uses almost on a weekly basis. That doesn't even make money. They actually make a loss. It's their other services that they've managed to do because now they've got the eyeballs, because now they're well known. So it's just a different paradigm. Now, do I agree with that paradigm? I don't know. But is that the way the world is heading? I guess. So you can either say, or I can either say, well, I don't understand, a digital rose, these NFTs, 2019, they sold it for $1 million. Now you have a choice at that stage. You can either say, this is ridiculous, and you can throw out, the baby with the bathwater, or you can say, there's obviously something going on here. How can I, mere mortal, in my home, for myself and my family, take advantage of this trend? You have that choice, and now we're coming back to mindset again.
Thank you, because that I think that explains it, the psychology and the interpretation of the circumstance. Now let me ask you this: you talked about earlier that you prescribe points of purchase, like as one of these tokens is coming down, that you describe specific points that you're going to. How do you define what they are? Do you do a technical analysis? How are you finding those points?
Yeah, I mean, technical analysis is one of those things which works half of the time. That's me being positive, right? So we just find a recent peak, and then we look for a fall. Now, if you are very aggressive, it would be minus 10%. Generally, we say 20% from a recent high, and then we're looking to get in a maximum of maybe, depending again how aggressive you are, 5 to 7 times. At certain points. And what we do is we say, well, what about just doing it very simply? Because people need simplicity when they're starting off. So we just basically say, look, from the high, minus 20%, so there's 80% left, right? Then at minus 30%, minus 40%, minus 50%, minus 60% is a kind of a great way of doing it. I'll tell you why that's good, because what it does is it gives certainty to people. Because if you start saying, well, if this happens and this happens, but not if this happens, and they'll go, do you know what? I can't do this. Right. They'll start and then they'll give up. If it's simple, and I tell you, it just works. Why? Because we're in a secular bull market. Now, I don't know what's going to happen when we're no longer, then we'll have to adapt the strategy. But right now, it is just working incredibly well, and it doesn't take a lot of time. That's the investing strategy.
When you do this, and I like the simplicity of it, so let me ask this. Sometimes, in a day, any of these tokens can drop 30% for. So are you just basically putting in the purchase order? So you're finding the peak, and then you have 5 separate purchase orders all the way down the line. They all might get hit in a day, right? Sometimes.
Or you can automate it in that way. which means that the money has already been, the broker already has that ready to go.
Right.
If you don't, and it does go down 30%, you just go, oh, the money that I would have put down at the 20%, and the money that I would have put down 30%, I'm going to put all of that in at 30%,
right.
at minus 30%, right? And then you get an even better price. By the way, this is really important. You cannot do this with any coin. There's like 10,000 coins on there. You can't do this with 9,900 and probably 90 of them. You have got to do it with the ones that are the most solid ones that you believe in. Because believe you me, when you're getting in a fifth time and sixth time and you're starting to get a little bit nervous, you can't stop doing it because you've got to get your average price down. Because then when that lift comes, you're going to be in profit and you're going to start milking that cow. Whereas the people that stopped doing it because they got nervous, because they didn't do their research, they don't believe in it, they stop doing it, and they're going to be in a buy and hold for the next 10 years.
Right.
So really stick with the top coins when you're doing that.
So now, flipping it around, what is the strategy for selling on the way up?
Okay, so if they are really like solid companies, then we basically say, look, as soon as you reach 50%, start taking some money off the table. Milk that cow. Moo, milk that cow. Take 20% off. And you can keep doing that because as it grows, you keep taking 20%. People think, well, after 5 times, haven't I, then the cow's dead. No. You're taking 20% of the total, so it keeps going. So you can keep milking it as it goes up, right? Then, as it starts coming down, you can start a new value cost averaging strategy. And you start all over again. So that maybe you do with your top 2, maybe top 4, maybe the ones you mentioned, maybe at this time of speaking, because that changes. Okay.
Right.
But when you're talking about some of the other ones, that are still got to be in the top 10 or 20, right? They've got to be really solid ones. You maybe get out when they reach 100%. And think about this, right? We're talking about 100%. I've been doing stocks for 21 years. When we're talking about 100%, it would be like, I just made 100% on a stock. That would be amazing, right?
Right.
Here in cryptos, it's like, yeah. 100%, yeah. It's like, but I tell you what, I have positions right now. I'm just thinking, one is 18,000%. I've got a 7,000%, a 6,000, a 5,000. I got loads of 4,000. Tens of 3,000, hundreds of 2,000. It's just a different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Start milking the cow, start milking that cow, but never, ever sell the whole thing, because what you're doing there is you're breaking one of the golden rules of trading and investing. One of the golden rules of trading and investing is let your profits run as long as possible, but don't watch it. Oh shit! I'm losing money. I'm losing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about milk the cow.
So I want to identify, because I like what you said about saying, hey, just let your profits run, right? That you really emphatically described that, right? So does that mean, let's say that I'm going to just give a scenario and see if I'm interpreting it, what you're saying properly. Let's say that I'm in at, I'm going to use easy figures. So I'm in at $1,000 on a particular token. And then it goes to 2,000. So
yes.
am I taking 1,000 out and then I'm going to keep trading with the 1,000 that's left as profit?
That's another strategy. That's what some people like to do as well, right? You take out your initial investment. That's also an absolutely bona fide thing to do.
Okay.
Me, I'm more aggressive, right? I want to leave more in, so I'll just take 20% out. I'll take 20% out. But that's just because what I've seen in the past in the 2017 bull run, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to milk this a little bit slower than that. But yeah, listen, absolutely fantastic. If you want to do that, take out your initial stake. Whatever happens now, it doesn't really matter.
Now you're playing with house money, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And then you can get really aggressive there, and if you blow out, it doesn't matter.
By the way, that's easier said than done, right? Because theoretically that sounds amazing, but I bet you people go, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Because we have one of our students, right? He put in 1,000 and it turned to 100,000 on Aave.
Wow.
And this took like 12 months.
Wow.
And then we said to him, listen, you got to take some money out. Yeah. And he didn't, and we kept saying, listen, you've got to take some money out. And we were quite tough with him. We said, listen, we're not going to talk to you anymore until you take some money out. So he finally takes it. And then the whole thing tanked, right? And he was, oh, thank you so much. But because people get greedy.
Yeah.
I'm like, how greedy do you need to be? 1,000 to 100,000? Come on, take 10,000 off. Let's go. Take some money off. And he's like, yeah, but 10,000, dude, you didn't have that 10,000. And what tends to happen is that, because when you're used to dealing in thousands and it goes to hundreds of thousands, your brain just goes, it can't compute. I remember giving two of our traders, they were used to dealing with 50,000 or so of their own money. And I gave them $1 million. And I said, okay, so here we go, because they were doing really well over 2 years. Well, I have to tell you, the first month, for the very first time, minus 6%. I was like, what happened? Next month, minus 6%. I'm like, and they did something in the city, we call it deck chair. They deck chaired. When a deck chair goes like that and the deck chair collapses on the beach. And that's psychology. That's total psychology. And that's why it's so important that people understand this game, and it is a game, has rules. And you can learn those rules, and that's 20%, and they're important. But 80% is, are you going to stick to the rules? Honestly, that is the most important thing. Are you actually going to stick to the rules? Knowing the rules and sticking to them.
You're bringing up something I think that's real important as you talk about psychology. And I love the example you just gave, because, let me ask you the question rather than make a statement. What role does self-image play in this? Because as you said, if you have somebody whose self-image is, I manage $50,000, and they're competent in that realm, but they don't have a self-identity that says I manage $1 million, and then it kind of leads them to maybe not making good decisions, or puts a certain pressure. I don't know what it is. So how do you think people have to work on their self-image, and how might they do that to be able to be effective on the psychological side of this?
It's not easy, honestly, because doing anything by yourself without a coach. I mean, my metaphor is always, I have a coach in several things, and one of them is training. Like fitness. I know it doesn't look like it, but I do. I do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And when I do something like the plank by myself, I might do a minute and I'll get bored, or I start trembling, and that's enough. I start one bead of sweat and that's it. Well, with him, I can do 5 minutes. And the reason is because he kind of encourages me. He says, oh, you're just about to beat the record, just another 30 seconds, Marcus. And believe me, his 30 seconds, he's lying. He's lying to me, right? His 30 seconds, I hate the guy. But and so, first of all, the first step to change any kind of change is awareness. Right? My personal mentor, T. Harv Eker, he's also a very good friend of mine. Amazing guy. And he always talks about the first step to change is awareness. Well, most people don't even know that you have to change your identity. So they're already lost, right? Now, let's just say, yeah, you have to do this thing. Well, how do you do it? Well, with difficulty by yourself. But you've got to, and this is nothing new, and I almost hate using the word visualize, because I visualize, but you've got to see yourself as it being normal for you to be trading and investing with larger sums of money, and it is just a zero. But for some reason, those zeros are very emotional. Now, here's a little trick that I used to do on certain, and not the exchanges don't do it in cryptos, but in stocks, they have modular things on them. So what you can do is you can click on a thing and drag it down. And I used to, it used to tell me a percentage that I was up and down, but also the amount of money that I was up and down. And I used to drag the money that I was up and down off screen so I couldn't see it. So I could see the percentages, because that would give me a certain feeling, but not as much as the money. As soon as you see the money, I'm not necessarily talking about red, also green. People react really weirdly when it comes to money. I'm up, 2,000. Well, that depends. How much did you invest? If you invested £1, 2,000 is a lot. If you invested 1,700, then 2,000 isn't really a lot, right? But they go crazy. So that's one trick. Is just to, that's what I used to do. I used to take it off the screen so that I would trade without any emotion. And that's the thing. Do this without emotion. Another way of doing it is to have a trading buddy. Now, who's your trading buddy? Anybody in your house. They don't even need to know what you're talking about. You just tell them that I am going to be asking you a question, right? So you say something like, honey, I'm about to go into the trade, and they have to reply every time in the same way. Okay, darling, and are you following the strategy 100%? and you have to answer 100%. And that's when you go. If you go, oh well, and then they will go, don't do it, because you either follow the strategy 100% or you don't, right? So I'm about to go in. It's like, yes, honey. They could be doing anything, right? They're watching TV, doing whatever. Are you following the strategy 100%? And if you're going, yeah, I mean, almost 100%. Don't do it. Don't do it. And it could be anybody. It could be your children. It could be your partner. It doesn't have to be somebody. Set yourself up to win. Set yourself up to win.
So an accountability partner, in essence.
You need that. Everybody needs that. And there's going to be people here watching this going, well, I don't need that. Whatever.
One of my rules for life is having fun at what we're doing. So you look like you're having a ton of fun. Are you having fun?
Yeah, we love what we do. What we do is we make, honestly, great money, trading, investing. We really do. Especially, I was doing okay when it comes to stocks, but this is a whole nother level. This is like times 20, times 30, times 50. It's just because of the volatility, right?
Yes.
But most people hate that, by the way. Yeah. And we teach people to love the volatility. If you can embrace that volatility, and then also the other thing we do is we help people do the same. Normal people, mothers, fathers, normal people. We have people where they've brought their entire, family, and they're doing it together. They're helping each other. So you have 3 generations. So you have the grandparents. I don't know how they were roped into it. They have the grandparents. You have the mother, the father, so the uncles, and then you have the 12-year-olds, 19-year-olds. And we often say to ourselves, is there any better job in the world than that? To make really good money and at the same time helping other people do the same. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, we have fun. We have a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's a great purpose, helping to enrich people and create wealth in the world, right? And if you're having fun doing it, then boy, I think you got dialed in. So this has been a great ride with you through this, through all your thinking around this, and you animate it. In other words, there's a lot of people who are very left-brained and can talk about it, but somehow you bring it to life and you animate it, which I think is a special gift. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do that here. And I wish you
so
continued success. And I hope more people find you to start training under you to do this work.
I hope so. We want to help as many people around the world create financial freedom for themselves and their families. Yeah. I added that bit after I had children. It wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Through financial education. Yeah. Financial education is something that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it for a long time. And I was massively in debt, sleeping on my brother's floor for 6 months in a sleeping bag, bright green sleeping bag. When I was up Mount Kilimanjaro with that sleeping bag. But anyway, and just because I didn't know you had to focus on money, I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know anything, I just didn't know anything. I used to have really long hair, really long beards, I was that guy, But yeah. But listen, do you have any more questions? Maybe you have some questions, like on a personal, I'd love to help.
Well, there's probably just one other question I have, and I've got my children right now. I think to a large degree, crypto is the future, so I want them to train and learn crypto.
Yeah, how old are they?
24, 20, and 17.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you got 3 kids?
3 kids.
Wow. How'd you manage that? I'm struggling with 2.
Well, I'll tell you, when you add the 3rd one, it's an order of magnitude as far as additional complication. It's not.
Oh, true.
It's not incremental. Yeah. It's a whole step function.
Yeah.
But my 24-year-old is graduated from college with honors, a dual major in finance and economics. Went to go work for a wealth management firm. Decided this isn't it, and now he wants to go get into crypto, and be self-responsible.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big proponent of doing both. Yeah. Because when people come to me, they've got one pillar holding up their financial freedom structure. It's called a career or whatever, right? And they go, oh, they can't stand it. And then they come to me and they go, oh, great. So we're going to learn how to trade and invest, right? So I can get rid of this. Well, hold on. Yeah. What was the problem here? This is very precarious.
Yep.
You've got one pillar holding up your entire finance. And now you come along and you go, great, I found something better. And you get rid of that? No. You stick with that. You have the money coming in every single month, right? And now you have a second one. Think of a table. You need at least 3 legs. Even this is a bit, you need a third one, really. Now, here's what happens. You start making money here. You start thinking differently. Your energy is different. You start enjoying this. Because you don't go yes to everything, because you go, do you know what? I probably earn more money than you, and now you start enjoying this. And then what happens is success breeds more success. Yeah. And that is a universal law, right? Doesn't matter how small they are. That's why you need to acknowledge your success. People say, oh, it was no big deal. No, it is a big deal. You need to celebrate that, because success breeds more success. Yeah. So then you'll probably start having another pillar, and now you're good to go. You need at least 3 pillars. So sorry, but if they can do it all, it would be great. Don't just rely on one thing. No way.
Here's my question. So 2 parts. Number 1, for let's say, let's use my 17-year-old, just since it's the youngest, as an example.
Yeah.
How long, in your experience, does it take him to learn what he needs to know to start becoming, to even start live trading, let's say? And then secondly, how much, once they are at that curve where they can start, how much time per day is required to manage this effectively? Well,
you've only got 4 coins, right? So, how much is it? But he needs to spend the rest of the time actually researching. I would love to offer, a membership to them, my treat to your kids, not to you, your kids.
I'm a lost cause. Yeah.
You're a lost cause. No, but you'll see, you'll see that, because it's all got to do with the follow-up support. Mm-hmm. Often what I do is I do it all the time. I'll buy this course, I'll buy this. And honestly, people just don't put any effort into it. They think about putting up a course and an email, it's just like, that's a course? That's not a course. You can jump in 3 times a week for half an hour and ask my trading team any question that you want during the week. Every 2 weeks for an hour and a half. You can look at, we have a Telegram group, so we tell you the trades that we're doing. Like we're going in now, guys, right? We have an ICO buyers club. Mm-hmm. So meaning that we will get a live interview going with somebody who's hopefully going to be the next Ethereum, the next Bitcoin. I don't know, right? We ask hard questions. And then what we do is everybody puts in 100 euros or dollars or whatever it is. Not in money, because we can't collect people's money, but in tokens and stuff. And we will go in and get whatever discounts that they're offering, which you can't get by yourself. Because if you come with $100, they'll go, I'm not giving you a discount. But we say, yeah, but together we have 50,000 now. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you get 50% discount. Mm-hmm. That is awesome, right? Yeah. You always have access to all my trades, my portfolio. My portfolio is open to everybody. Everybody sees my portfolio. We have things like that. So I would say 20 minutes a day, but it has to be at the same time every day. It can be morning, lunchtime, evening. It doesn't matter, because then it becomes a habit. Mm-hmm. It's 9 o'clock. Okay, it's time to. Because if you say, like going to the gym, you say, oh yeah, I'm going to do it sometime today. Come on, that's not going to happen, right? This is not going to happen, because there's always something more important. Right. So first thing, for example, if I'm first thing, I have to, otherwise I'll never do it, right? Same time every day, like brushing the teeth. You don't even think about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it just goes like this. It goes like that. So that was the answer, I think. Yeah, 20 minutes, but the same time every day. And I like the consistency of it, because to your point earlier, if I don't do my workout first thing, then I always think, oh, I'll do it later. I need to do this right now. I lose it. It's done that day. It doesn't happen. So I think that's very sage advice, which comes probably from your own pain, through experience. Sure. Great that you're sharing that. I guess, summing up here, this is an enormous opportunity that exists in a moment in time, right? It's just, I think that blockchain and crypto, we're in a special phase of it now that creates opportunity for people. And it seems like your mission is to teach people about the opportunity they have and get them to act on it. And I think what you're doing in the world is a great thing, and it fills my soul to see you so happy and light around doing it. So thank you for being here and sharing with us, and also thank you for what you do every day. Thank you so much. It's I just can't get enough people into it. I'm literally begging them, to get into it, because I think that in a few years, in the next cycle, maybe even this cycle, because we're in 4-year cycle, right? And we're right in that cycle where now, after the halving, this is where it shoots up. And I think we're good until around November time. And then maybe it'll, because that's what markets do. Markets, as in Benjamin Graham, they always say, they're emotional, so they'll be over exuberant. So it might carry on for a little bit longer. And then if not, then they'll just have to wait until the next market cycle. But it really is life-changing money for the average person.
Yeah. Well, changing lives. Great agenda to be on every day. I love it.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you.
That's what we do. We go in, we go, change lives, way.
I love it. Thank you so much. That completes my interview with Marcus DeMaria. As you could see, a guy who said, hey, I've been traveling, maybe I'm a little jet lagged. Well, no, he's full of energy. His brain is on fire, and he's excited about what he's doing. And I'm glad that he can share that fire with you. Andy Tanner is someone who I've interviewed a few times before for other financial series that we've done. So one of the first names I thought of when we were going to embark on a crypto series was Andy. He's a big guy, I think he's like 6'8", with a big heart, who really cares about people. He loves to see people grow their wealth and their security, and he has a lot of great insight when it comes to cryptocurrency. So I sat with Andy, we had a phenomenal conversation. Now I want to share that conversation with you. Andy, I always know it's going to be a good day when you and I are having a conversation, so thanks so much for coming to the studio and having this one.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I've been keeping track, and I participate as a student in all the things you do, all the Revealed series, and as a student, I just love it. So thanks for having me. It's humbling.
Well, thank you. You're the guy that when we have you on to talk about money or finance or wealth development, everybody says, I believe I can do it after I hear from him. and you take what seemingly are complex things and kind of translate them to, here's how you can put it on the ground and have it serve you. So crypto, kind of another world, separate from what we've been talking about, but nonetheless, it seems like you've been trading it.
Yeah.
And you have all these fascinating trading strategies. So first, give me your top level view just on crypto in general before we talk about it.
Let's start big picture, because it's a big picture.
Yeah.
I'd say the first thing is that it's so exciting is I've always had the self-concept of being a student. Mm-hmm. I never like to walk around like I'm an investing encyclopedia, because I'm not. Yeah. I have one gift. I tend to make stuff simple, and it's probably because my mind is simple. But the context of being a student right now is a huge thing, because no one's going to walk into a room and say, yeah, I've been trading crypto for 35 years, and there's no one it's so new that really everyone's a student. Mm-hmm. So I start with that is if a person wants to participate, it's not going to be about the advice, well, should I buy Ethereum or Bitcoin, or is it Dogecoin or non-fungible? It's really is, if I'm going to get close to my goals, is that going to be a function of my own personal development in this skill? Yeah, probably is. Mm-hmm. So that context of a student is where I'm still at. Mm-hmm. It's not old enough for me to say, oh, I've got this one figured out. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, I've been studying it intensely, and I'm excited to be a part of this series as a student again, because I've seen who you've got coming, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
So we start with the student and learning it, so I can share with you what I've learned so far.
Please.
I think. I love to talk about both sides of the coin. People get dogmatic and cheer for their asset class. Oh, real estate's the best. Oh, real estate's terrible. Oh, stocks are better than real. Well, Bitcoin's the new thing. And one of the things I'm good at as a primarily stock and options investor is I can poke holes in what's wrong or what's difficult about it.
Right.
If I'm going to get enamored with stocks, I'm probably not going to be a very good stock trader, because it's the risks that I learn about to handle. Mm-hmm. So I begin by talking to people about, before we fall in love with crypto, because it is a thing, it's going to be big, we need to learn about it, but let's start with, it's not perfect. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things that I think about with it. Number one, I look at it a lot like Warren Buffett looks at gold. Mm-hmm. Gold doesn't produce anything. Mm-hmm. And so you're basically having a gold go up or gold go down. Now, if I own Fruit of the Loom underwear, I'm producing underwear. And so there's cash flow to be had. Warren Buffett doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, the market's down, I wonder if I should sell Fruit of the Loom. It's not even traded. He's focused on what that business generates from a cash flow standpoint. So if a person's going to get in crypto as an investment, as opposed to just using it as a currency, they're going to have to play the up and down game, and that's a tough game to play to start with. Currency, I mean, what do you put in your, you don't put $10 million in your checking account. You put in enough it's supposed to move. And currency's supposed to be there to spend and to get rid of. When you think about it, currency is to get rid of. We don't stack it. And somehow this has turned into an investment very, very quickly for people, and it's very easy to get enamored with it. So first thing I'd say is, what do we want to use it for primarily? Is it a great cash flow tool if you're an expert in technical analysis, if you're a great day trader, if you understand charts and you like that up and down game with something that's very volatile? People can do it. It's not my specialty, but I'll tell you what I like about it. What a great alternative to other currencies as a hedge, right? And that's why I began to trade a little bit and learn about it. It's still in its infancy. From a cash flow standpoint, Patrick, it's optional. If you have stocks trading skills, you can trade crypto. It's the same thing. It's like any other currency going up and down on a chart. But as you look at the options market, and it hasn't invaded the main markets yet, but there's some credible markets. It's thinly traded right now. There's wide spreads. I know I'm speaking stock language, but I've been trading it because here's the key. They're going to get better. There's going to be more participation, not less. Spreads are going to narrow, volume's going to get higher. And the hardest thing about crypto is its volatility. It's so all over the place. When a person learns to use options in the same way I do it with stocks, I'm already protecting my cryptos and cash flowing my cryptos by selling options against it and buying options to protect it, which is something very few people in the crypto world are doing. And you can see there's a lot of amateurs doing it. I don't do it with full fervor. I'm not putting all my money in this. But because I know how options work, and I know how they give me guarantees at which I can buy and sell, imagine that. What if you can buy and sell your Bitcoin or your Ethereum with a guarantee by spending a little money or making a little money promising to buy it? So if I told you right now that I received money this week for a promise to buy Bitcoin almost 25% cheaper than it is today, that'd be pretty interesting for people to know. So wait a minute. You're getting money for a promise to buy Bitcoin going cheaper than it is today. Yeah, on this very day.
So explain how that works.
Well, let's say that you own some Bitcoin, and let's say you got in at $40,000. Let's see, that's the rate. It's been all over the place.
Right.
And let's say today it's 45. And you're a little nervous that it might go down below that. So you say, I want to buy some insurance. Now, you insure your house, yes?
Yes.
Do you think it's going to burn down today?
I hope not.
Well, but you're still insuring.
Yeah.
So you're not predicting, you're preparing.
Right.
So the same things happen. I mean, I talk about this with 401ks. What's more likely to burn down in the next 6 months, your house or your 401k?
Right.
Well, people spend much more money insuring their house than their investments.
Right.
If you say, hey, I want to draw a line in the sand, let's say at 40,000, I want to insure that.
Meaning that if it goes below 40,000, I want to sell it?
You can get rid of it.
Okay.
Exactly. We're guaranteed get rid of it. That's a good feeling if someone's nervous and they're trading it. I mean, because Bitcoin can get cut in half. We've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's still new. And so to have that line in the sand, you feel just as good. Now, sleep at night. I know if it goes below 40, I at least get 40 out of it.
Is that similar to a stop loss, though? In other words, in the sense that I could just sell it at 40, but I might miss it and it could go lower.
Yeah. If you have a gap, exactly.
Yeah.
If you have a gap, that's an issue big time.
Yeah.
And it's nice. And people can also speculate with these, right? If you bet it's going down, you can buy it and make some money. So I will take cash because I believe long term it's going to get bigger and not smaller. That's
Okay.
my belief.
Right.
I think that cryptocurrencies become more valuable, not less valuable, like anything else. So I'm willing to say, well, gee, if it goes up, I keep that cash. If it stays the same, I keep that cash. If it goes down, I'm going to buy something I was going to buy anyway, $5,000 per coin cheaper, and I got paid to do it at a decent percentage. You got to fight a little bit with spreads, and there's things to learn. And we're developing classes for Bitcoin people way quick because they want to know.
Right.
The good news is that this is its infancy, and people have at least a little time to learn these skills. I'm so grateful right now for two things. The things I've learned so far, because these skills are absolutely transferable. Look, principles of financial education are not going to change, right? And so that's good news. And then the second thing is what I've learned is transferable, and I have the opportunity, I have a little bit of time to get my financial education in order to take advantage of this. So that's the first thing, is those skills are transferable. If a guy can trade stocks, he can trade Bitcoin or Ethereum. And if a guy understands options, we can start to develop cash flows and a little bit less risk in holding some of those cryptos.
Why do you think there's not much of an options market so far? In other words, it seems like certainly there's a lot of volume and trading going on, but it would make sense, especially with the volatility, at least it would to me, that options trading would be very opportune here. But as you said, not many people are in the game right now, so it's kind of like a good time to get in.
Yeah, I was on, I can't remember, some designer website buying a gift for my wife, and all of a sudden I thought, they take crypto now. A question would be how come I can't use crypto in a vending machine most places yet? How come I can't? It's still new, right? It hasn't had the proliferation yet that has, but it will. And if you look at the trend, very, very quickly, there are ETFs that are tied to Bitcoin now.
Can you explain what ETF is?
ETF is an exchange-traded fund that tracks something. So, for example, there's something called the GLD. It's the gold ETF, and it just keeps pace. The good news is there's, I have a course on ETFs, but there's ETFs that use futures to trade, and those aren't as good. You have ETFs that actually buy the physical gold or the physical silver to keep that in line. The ETFs are buying the actual cryptos to keep it in line. So you're seeing ETFs come on. You're going to see them move from over-the-counter exchanges onto the major exchanges. You're going to see nothing but growth here, in my opinion. And so the urgency I feel is I'm just in learning mode as fast as I can, which leads to something else. It's bigger than like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let me poke another hole in it. I think part of the value of what you guys do is you show both sides of every coin. If we're going to manage risk well, we have to be able to poke holes in our own asset class. Andy, what's wrong with stocks? Well, these are the problems I have, and these are problems I have to solve. You might remember there was a company in my home state of Utah long, long ago called WordPerfect.
Oh, sure.
And it was back when MS-DOS was still green on a computer screen. And all of a sudden, we went from having to hunt and peck and white out to this word processor called WordPerfect. And these guys made $1 zillion, and overnight, everyone was using WordPerfect. And no one uses it today. And that's called obsolescence risk. So when you have a protocol like hypertext protocol like the HTTP, you have Netscape. And where is that today? Bitcoin is the first big one in this protocol. We could very well be having a conversation 5 years from now where we talk about Bitcoin in the same way we talk about WordPerfect. Because the nature of technology is that it grows and changes exponentially. When I trade a technology stock, one of the boxes I need to check is this blockbuster video that's going to get overrun by Netflix like that? Because when the CD came out, oh my gosh, you can put the Library of Congress on this piece of plastic. Now if you have a CD player, you're a joke.
Right.
So Bitcoin, people become, Steve Jobs had a great line, don't be trapped by dogma. Don't let someone just be a cheerleader and get emotionally and even spiritually involved in buying it. Well, Bitcoin's it, that's the one. We could be talking about it in the same way WordPerfect. Ethereum has different algorithms than Bitcoin. And when I look at what it can do and think we develop AI in 6-7 years, pretty soon blockchain changes. So for people to say, oh, this is the future, well, WordPerfect was the future for a couple of years, and then it got integrated in other things. So a person needs to think very, very big and be ready for anything. Don't predict, prepare.
Well, and this is where trading would say you don't have to worry as much because you're not holding long term. and you're kind of getting in and out and taking advantage maybe of the volatility of the market. And what you're saying is exactly the big debates about you have these Bitcoin maximalists that just basically say it's Bitcoin and that's it, and then some people saying, well, no, there's a ton of opportunities, altcoins, even though it might be more speculative, and people, as you're saying, are almost dogmatically saying Bitcoin is here to stay. And some very smart people, and they have a rationale for it, but I think the final answer is nobody knows, right?
Most of them smarter than me, for sure.
But nobody's smart enough to know.
We don't know, and I look at the gold guys, and my grandfather was a gold bug. I'm a gold bug. I love physical gold. I have a little bit, and I also have some digital gold. But the argument of gold was always, well, the dollar quit being a dollar in 1971. When you took it off the gold standard, it no longer became money. You go on the other side of that and say, no, actually, when we took the gold off the dollar gold standard, gold quit being money, because we certainly haven't used it since.
Right.
And so a person, at some point someone had to say, we're not doing seashells anymore for money, we're doing gold. And someone says, no, seashells have been money as long as I've been alive. So we have to be open to change. But it's very easy in any asset class to become attached to it almost religiously. Well, this is what I believe. When we talk about central banks, if I live in Argentina and I'm having inflation rates, or I live in Venezuela and the governments are just printing money and doing crazy things, crypto is pretty appealing to me because I'm bypassing a central bank. And I think, okay, here's a place I can store. Now, understand, when you have an investment, there's three things we can go for. We can go for a capital gain, buy low, sell high. That's the gold market for the trader. That's not my game. Number two, you have the hedge. That is my game. Oh, I'm going to buy this to protect. It's an insurance policy. I love crypto for that. Third is I have cash flow. That's when you have a business or a dividend. That's Warren Buffett. I'm not buying Coke because the price goes up. I'm buying Coke because I'm selling colas. Crypto doesn't sell colas, but it does have the other two, and they're worth learning. Here's my worry about central banks. On the one hand, a government would love to have digital currencies. Why? Well, how many dishonest people I see it all the time that say, hey, if you'll give me cash, it drives me crazy. It's, if you give me cash, I'll give you a little discount. Why are they doing that?
Not to pay taxes.
Not to pay taxes. Okay, all of a sudden you eliminate cash, the government's revenues just go crazy, right? I mean, now we have this problem. If you allow people privacy, they'll cheat. But if you hold them accountable with transparency, they have no privacy. So that will be a really fun movie to watch as that unfolds. But I really don't see the Federal Reserve, you're already seeing tax laws, you're going to have to report your crypto. And if you think you can circumvent a central bank with crypto, I'd like to have that debate with someone. Because I'll tell you who's in charge. It's who gets your tax dollar. They're the ones with the guns and the jails and if you don't pay, we'll haul you off. And if the government doesn't like crypto, they'll say, well, we'll up the tax on crypto. And you're going to have to come up with dollars anyway at the end of the day if you want to live in this country and pay taxes. So,
well, I think it's already in place. You have to pay tax on your gains, right? I mean, if they're realized. So, and maybe there's some interesting things around that as far as how they look at it as property, instead of currency, but or securities. But nonetheless, to your point, I'm wondering if you feel the same way with what's going on with the government right now and the spending, the out of control spending.
Exactly.
Do we need to have a hedge in something else?
Understanding monetary policy is the biggest course I teach right now. If you're going to trade cryptocurrencies, like if you're going to trade stock, you need to know their earnings and their what we call fundamentals. Well, then we move to sovereign fundamentals. If you're going to trade bonds or the euro against the yen, so now you're looking at global fundamentals because it's all over the world. By understanding central bank policy, I think it helps you understand the risk better because there's a bunch of levers. There's a rumor, I don't know if it's true, that The Wizard of Oz was really an expose on it was written surreptitiously about the central bank. A guy behind the curtain, yellow brick rolls, Oz is 1 ounce, OZ of gold. There's all this crazy.
I never heard this before.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's websites that have like 1,000 correlations between that. And I'll tell you, there's some truth about pulling those levers because the Fed likes to manipulate the money supply. They like being able to print money. And how easily are they going to allow a global currency to circumvent them before they say, no, because it's not just about money, it's about power. So I just bring up these things not to poke holes in crypto, because obviously I'm trading it, obviously I'm excited about it, obviously I feel as a student I way need to study it, because it's even bigger than crypto, it's about blockchain too.
Yeah.
And so if you're the Federal Reserve, do you develop your own and say, this is what we're using? You know, companies develop their own. In the 1800s, we had a big boom in my home country, the United States. You could start a bank like that, particularly in Ohio and Michigan in the 1830s. People would start banks all the time, and they had something called specie, which was gold coin, and there were no central banks. And you had wildcat banks where people would just start their own currency. Patrick, there's a cryptocurrency from the Legends Room. Now, I've never been, but the Legends Room is, and I use the term gentleman loosely, but it's a gentleman's club in Las Vegas. And they decide, well, we'll develop our own crypto. Now, if you can have a gentleman's club get their own crypto, and you go in, there's a dancer, and you're pulling out your phone and scanning the barcode tattooed on her ribs, that's kind of a Wild West. So think about this. We're kind of back to that 1830s wildcat banking where Doge coins, video game coins, these things are just valuable only because people seem to want them. So the ability to educate yourself now more than ever before is huge. Let's talk about an even bigger picture. There's Bitcoin and Ethereum and 1,000 different currencies, but then there's blockchain technology in general. And that's the bigger picture. I mean, it should change how we vote. It's really a ledger of transaction, and it can be used in so much more than just currency. We can use it in so many ways. I don't see a need for a bank anymore because it's in your phone or in your pocket. And it reminds me of when they came out with the World Wide Web, and all of a sudden you're buying your tickets on Delta. Travel agents are going away. Real estate agents are having a tougher time. Technology is taking over jobs, and what do you need a bank for? A bank used to be a place with a vault because you didn't want to keep your money at your house, and they said, well, if you're going to keep it here, let's loan it out and make money. I don't see a need for a bank, which means who's going to do the loans? It means you and I do, right. Which means you need to decide who you're going to loan your money to. And banks are pretty smart with those algorithms and actuarial tables and credit scores. And so cryptos that can build that in. And then you're in China and you have your citizen score. Are you a good risk because you charge because we're analyzing your cell phone charging habits. It's a crazy world right now. Right. So if you go to DeFi, that's a reset. And that's bigger than any individual currency we talk about. If you go to decentralized finance, DeFi, decentralized finance, where we circumnavigate banks and brokerages, I don't see a need for brokerage. I don't see a need for one. If you have blockchain, it's more honest. It's going to get less expensive. That's the technology. So preparing for DeFi, if you're going to be on your own bank, well, how many average people are ready with the proper financial education to be their own bank or their own brokerage and carry stuff around their wallet and deal with the world peer-to-peer with no middleman? The peer-to-peer is very attractive, but the education is not there for most people to play in this world. I've studied, I don't like to walk around like I've known a lot, Patrick, but I study a lot. And I don't feel I'm ready. And so I feel an urgency where I'm reading and I'm listening to podcasts and I'm watching, series like this one to get as much as I can because I can feel it. The world's changing. Yeah. Huge.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the lack of need for banks and so on coming forward. But our system is sort of ingrained, right? We have a fiat currency, we got banks, the banks have FDIC insurance, so when you deposit your money there, you can feel like, hey, if something were to happen, the government is backing me. As far as saying I can't, at least $250,000 is not at risk. But at the same time, the government's debasing the currency, printing like crazy, creating inflation, the buying power is decreasing, and not real efficient, and you got, again, people behind curtains pulling levers, And I guess a question is going to be: do we human beings want freedom or not?
Yeah.
do we want sovereignty or not? And I think that's really kind of the fascinating question for what's going to transpire maybe in the next 10 or 15 years, right?
Yeah. What programmer is going to say, yeah, my algorithm's hackable, my blockchain's hackable? No one's going to say it. They all are.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is a smarter technology to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so your question is exactly right, is, well, do I want this or do I want that? Let's say you choose, well, I hate the Fed, I'm anti-Fed, I hate them, they're corrupt, whatever you want to believe, everything from Bigfoot conspiracies down to where what I believe is there's some manipulation there. Yeah. Not quite Bigfoot conspiracy level for me, but I believe there's issues. Yeah. If you want to take that freedom, with freedom comes the responsibility.
Right.
And are they ready for that? That's the thing I'm more concerned about. Is my son, he's turning 16 soon. He's got the learner's permit. He's got a new freedom. Yeah. He's excited about that. Of course, mom and dad are saying, well, there's some responsibilities here, certain level of competency, or you get wrecked. I think the same's true here.
Yeah.
I'm an education advocate, and so I guess when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
But I really do see this more than any other conversation we have or have had, the education deficit that exists in the lives of most people when it comes to money, the inability to understand the Federal Reserve. Before I teach people about the little I've learned about crypto so far, because it's so new, there's not much to know yet. But I've really tried to help people understand central banking first and what those levers look like.
What's the most important thing to understand about central banking?
There are 5 or 6, that's tough. The single most thing, I say there's 5. It's understanding those levers that we talked about. The ones I could rattle off. Number 1 is the reserve requirement. Now, if I ask people on the street what that is, most people, and I say, what is the reserve requirement right now? And the shocking thing is 0. Which what that means is the fractional reserve lending is a full tilt. That teaches me a lot about where the Fed is. Wow, it tells me our environment is actually deflationary because that's a full tilt inflationary level. So I know what that lever is, and I also know that it's to the max. Those are 2 important things to know. Second one, reserve, what we call the Federal Reserve rate. A lot of people think they just set that rate. No, they manipulate the market to find that rate. Third is the reverse repo market. There are certain member banks in the Federal Reserve, and those outside that can't deal with the Federal Reserve will drop interest rates lower to attract lending and money, interbank lending, overnight lending, so they can keep their reserve requirements proper. And if that can draw interest rates to 0 or below, you can get negative interest rates. So they pull that reverse repo lever to put a floor on that rate. So they do it by attracting money. So I say, oh, I'm a money market fund. I only have so many places I can put money. I just send it to the Fed where it's going to be guaranteed, let them borrow my treasuries overnight. So understanding these levers, and we could go on, it's a different topic.
Yeah.
But when you understand central banking, it helps you make crypto decisions better. Yeah. Because if you're going to be the bank, you ought to know the rules.
And I think this is kind of the point, is that there are all these levers and manipulations going on, and we have no control over any of that.
Right.
Yet if we're sitting here with dollars that we've accumulated, we basically are, I don't want to say slave, but we're subjects to what they're doing, and if they're erroneous actions, it's going to cost me, right?
That's a huge point you just made. It's one of the biggest point you made, because let's use that metaphor of slavery, like I'm a slave to the system. Okay, how do taskmasters feel about freeing the slaves?
Not very good.
So that's why I say, okay, crypto's fine, you're excited, that's going to take your shackles off. Got to check with your taskmaster first. How fast are they going to let go of those levers? They've got some pretty good buddies on the fiscal side in the government that can tax you. And in some places, they'll say, well, now it's illegal. And are you really willing to, if they declare it illegal, Okay, no more crypto.
Do you think the horse is out of the barn? I mean, can they at this point try to say
There's some
there's
guys-
$1 trillion of value in Bitcoin? Can they suddenly say, oh, well, we're just going to make that illegal? I mean, how?
There's a lot of experts that have made that claim. Horses out of the barn, can't catch it, can't reel it in. Well, I wasn't alive when this happened, but FDR,
Yeah, when they made gold illegal?
yeah, they said, turn in your gold. Now, that's pretty widespread because that was the global standard, turn in your gold. And it's illegal to own gold, and so people turned it in. And then they said, we'll give you $24 an ounce for it. And then after they got it all, they said, the law now says it's $35 an ounce. I wish I could do that.
And they're doing that in reverse right now. Don't they have a bunch of gold on the balance sheet, but they have it marked way below the market?
Yeah, they do. You're absolutely correct. Way below. In fact, it's insignificant part of their balance sheet now. If they updated it, it'd be much, much bigger, but that's what they've got it at.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West. And so the message is get out of predicting mode because we can't predict. I've learned this. I can't prove it, but I would make this argument that perhaps the defining characteristic of markets and finance is unpredictability. We can put a man on the moon and predict a lot of things with physics. Like economics, it's not really a science. It's a trial and error hodgepodge of supply and demand. So what I try to do is I try to prepare, and I do this by understanding two forces, and this is where monetary policy is so huge. I understand inflation and the forces that cause that, both natural and man-made, and I seek to understand deflation and the causes that are behind that, both natural and man-made.
What do we need to know about each of those?
This is really good. This is brass tacks of what I think a viewer would really like. When I talk about inflation, if we have that scenario, I need to know what to have in my balance sheet to benefit. If we talk about deflation, I need to know what to have in my balance sheet to benefit. So if you look at Warren Buffett, he's got about half and half here. He's got $140 billion in cash. If you have deflation, cash is king because dollars get really valuable and stuff gets way cheap because people are trying to get rid of it. If you have inflation, you want gold, stocks, real estate, you want investments. You don't want any cash because your cash loses value. So having a plan to prepare as you look at charts and as you see things swing to move a portion of your portfolio to lean a little bit more, a little bit less. Buffett, why does he have $140 billion set aside in cash doing nothing? It's not creating any cash. It's not earning any interest to speak of because there's no real great, low risk. I mean, what's a treasury going to get you? So he's in cash. The reason is if we have deflation, he can pounce. I would think. I'm not Warren, but I would imagine he would concur. Well, why does he have so many stocks still? Well, if we inflate, the stocks do well. So he's in a really nice position of a mix of businesses, investment, and cash where you can see that deflation or inflation either way. And that is key. If you want, I do not know how I could divorce trading stocks without options. I wouldn't know how to do it because I need the options to protect my stocks, and I need those to work hand in hand. I do not know, based on what I'm learning as a student, I do not know how you can really successfully trade cryptocurrencies without a mastery of how monetary policy works and those levers that cause the inflation, the deflation. As I mentioned, if I look at the Federal Reserve and all their levers are like massively trying to get inflation going, what that tells me is they're fighting huge deflationary pressures that I'm more worried about deflation than inflation right now. Why? I look at the Fed's levers and I see they're fighting deflation. They're fighting it. And so, velocities of money, how often a dollar changes hands, these are necessary skills to successfully manipulate the crypto market to your advantage, in my opinion.
Well, one question I would have before I want to get into now, because I think you're making the case for options, right? And nobody's really talking about options when it comes to the crypto markets. Many are asserting that inflation is happening, and it's interesting because you're the first person I've heard say it's a consequence to try to prevent deflation. Most are associated with debt, saying, hey, they're taking on so much debt that they need to create inflation, so they're paying it back with dollars that are worth less than the dollars that were borrowed. So that might be another aspect of it.
Yeah, let's maybe use a metaphor if we can simplify it. Some people look at periods of inflation and deflation almost like a season. Oh, we were in winter for a while, or we were in spring for a while. That's a poor metaphor. A better metaphor is a really powerful arm wrestle, where you have a deflationary force with a big muscle, not like this one, and an opposing force. So you have inflation, deflation, fighting back and forth. Well, if deflation begins to win, which it has been winning, they're going to push it back with inflationary policies. So think of it this way. Is COVID deflationary, inflationary? Well, it's deflationary. The velocity of money stops. No NBA playoffs that year, no Final Four, no theaters, no restaurants. Money stops, that's deflationary. Technology, deflationary. My cell phone can do more now than in the 1980s that it cost $20,000 to do everything that I can do, and now it's cheaper to make long-distance phone calls, right? So technology is deflationary. Population growth can be inflationary, deflationary. So seeing things through that inflation, deflation lens is what helps us understand that arm wrestle really, really well. That's a huge thing. When it comes to options, and you say, well, I'm making a case for options. I am, just clearly. Here's why. What contracts do is they try to bring some control to the uncontrollable otherwise. So rather than an options, let's start with a future.
And incidentally, when you're talking about options contracts,
yes,
is that if somebody were to say, why is there this kind of market that's a derivative of the actual trading? Does it really serve a purpose? Does it add any value? And I think, is that it?
You're hitting it right in the bullseye.
Good.
I mean, you really are. Your intuition serves you well. You're hitting it right in the bullseye. Let's say that you're Kellogg's and I'm Farmer Joe making corn.
Right.
Okay, what are your fears as a buyer of corn?
As a buyer, that there might be a lack of supply and the prices go up.
So as you're trying to make your 5-year business plan or your 1-year business plan, how do you do that? Because you can't control the price of corn.
Right.
Okay. All right. I'm Farmer Joe. What are my concerns?
That somebody will be able to buy it.
Huge supply,
Yeah.
right? I'm out of business if there's a huge supply. If corn goes down. So you and I get together and say, well, look, I need to sell it. You need to buy it, right? And we need stability in our business. Let's make an agreement in the future. Let's do a future contract. That's all it is. And so I say, look, I know you'll need corn 2 years from now. I know I need to sell it 2 years from now. Let's get a price and settle on it and shake hands. And that way, hey, I might be bummed in 2 years to say, gee, I could have sold it for a lot more than this. And you might be bummed to say, well, I could have bought it. But you know what? If we can get into agreement where our business's plans will work,
Right.
now you got something. So you can see the value of a contract in giving people 2 promises, and the value of those contracts will go up and down, and I might have to sell that contract to someone else and get out of it or buy it. There are speculators that are going to manipulate that. But when it comes down to oil, if you're Delta Airlines and you're buying jet fuel, some futures might serve you well for stability. So does that give a reason when someone says, why would I want contracts and all these derivatives? They actually bring stability if you can make agreements that work for both of us and move forward.
Right.
Well, you also have options contracts that says, look, I don't want to make a commitment right now. Right? This is how people date. Right? I don't want to make a commitment. Or maybe should. We could have a conversation about exit strategy after they date, right?
Okay.
But the reality of it is I might want some choices. And I would like to lock in my ability to buy something at a certain price. I don't know about today, but if certain things were to happen, I'd like that choice. And it helps you lock in your ability to do something now without having to wait to see what happens. So these are very valuable to have. That's why I said I can't see trading stocks without options, because that's where my protection comes from, and it's also where some of my cash flow comes from, because I'll give people insurance. Hey, look, if you want to pay me, let's say you pay me $1,500 per Bitcoin to buy it at 40 when it's at 45 or whatever, right? Gee, $1,500. Now maybe it goes down
And that would
to
be the so-called put option.
Yeah. Maybe it goes down to 35 or whatever, and if I'd have bought it today at 45, I lost 10 grand. If I buy it at 40, I lost 5. Plus I got 1,500 there. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, and the spreads aren't great. I wouldn't recommend people do it right now as a bread and butter, but I would recommend you at least practice. Get a couple of, if you have the wherewithal, you get 4 or 5 coins and practice, or even if you're doing a paper account and practice, because it's going to be a thing. Here's the good news I have for people with options. Would you like to protect your Bitcoin? Would you like to insulate yourself from volatility?
So let's walk through a use case. So let's say I'm sitting on 10 Bitcoin, and I want to be long Bitcoin. I believe it's going to go, but I could be wrong, right? We had some people come on here that said it's going to go to 0 and everybody's foolish, right?
So let's say you bought it at 50, so you got $500,000.
All right, so let's say, okay, so let's run that case. So I'm sitting here with 10 Bitcoin at $50,000. I got $500,000 invested. But I'm saying, I should probably buy some insurance, which is what you're saying this is, against my position of $500,000.
Yep.
What would that look like?
Well, let's ask this question. How much pain are you willing to have? You bought it at 50, almost the top of the market.
Yeah, and I know the volatility is a
Yeah.
lot. And if this thing starts to
So
go
let's say it
below
drops-
35.
How do you feel about 30?
Yeah, 30, okay.
So you've gone from 500 to, it's $200,000 you lost. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's I'd say, okay, I took my shot, I should get out of 30.
And
30 is
maybe
good.
you say to yourself, I've listened to Andy, and I'm concerned about the obsolescence risk. See, that's where the dogmatism kills you, right? Because Bitcoin's my thing. And all of a sudden, how does Blockbuster feel when Netflix shows up? Look, Ethereum, do people trading Ethereum, why are they trading Ethereum over Bitcoin? Why do you choose that? Well, you have to know about the algorithms and what it does, right? Why would you trade a Dogecoin? Non-fungible versus fungible, right? They don't know. Most people are just guessing.
Right.
They're dogma. So I'm going to ask you, how do you feel if that drops to 30? But not only that, you say to yourself, why did it drop? Oh, because Ethereum just came out, and we just learned this, or a new one came out that's just going to bury all of them.
Right.
Well, now you're stuck at 30. Well, now it's 20. Now it's this. So it's kind of like your house, isn't it?
Yeah.
How much of your house are you ready to burn down? Well, if you wanted to say 30 is and that's a wide
it's a
spread,
wide gap.
30, your insurance is cheap. If you want to insure at 49, the insurance is going to cost you more. And that's where you learn the options,
Okay.
right? For me, what I will do is I'll buy some Bitcoin. And let's say I got in today at 42, 45, whatever it is today. And I say, I'd be willing to sell it at 50 for a quick turn. There's people who pay me to promise to sell it at 50. Why? Because rather than pony up the money that I'm willing to pony up for some Bitcoin, they're going to speculate on the option, which are cheap. It's, 10th of the cost to 100th of the cost. So I'll take that money of that little swing, and I'll say, all right, I bought it at 45, I'll sell it to you at 50. You give me some cash. I use that cash to buy my insurance. And the name of that trade is it's called a collar. You collar it. And so now I'm giving up some upside. If it goes to 100 grand, I got to sell it. But if it goes down, well, I'm protected, and I've got a nice little range in there where the volatility now, I'm worried about this range instead of the volatility like this range. Do I give up upside? Yeah. Do I have less downside? Yeah. But it's an alternative for people that want to get into crypto and trade it without having to have all or nothing, boom or bust, a way to maybe limit some of your risk and limit some of your upside reward, but still make some decent money doing it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's risk
Or
management.
lose less,
Right?
yeah.
It's risk management.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier that I think is kind of important. You said it's probably not yet matured enough as a marketplace to be able to make options your bread and butter, where
sure.
you're going to
Yeah.
make a lot of money trading options in it yet. But it's still a recommendation if you're going to hold positions that somehow you basically insure these positions through what you're talking about. Is that kind of accurate?
I think that's exactly accurate. And for me, I see this as something I have to do necessarily more than I want to do. Look, it's a thing, and it's not going away. It's going to get bigger, not smaller. There's too many cool things about blockchain, too many advantages of it. And people say, well, it's not backed by anything. Well, it's actually backed by some pretty cool technology and some pretty cool, you can make some pretty big transactions for some pretty small fees.
Yeah.
Are there problems with it? Yeah, but it's too good to go away. And the value of it isn't, we've got to get away from thinking that the value it's a derivative of something more valuable, like the dollar used to represent by gold. In and of itself, the very fact this technology makes it cool, makes it valuable. The fact that we can facilitate transaction in and of itself makes it cooler than gold is in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
I just get worried that people get too gung-ho without understanding, but with every investment, there's just, I always teach people 4 things. If a person's listening and they say, okay, what do I do? Okay, give me all this information, you got me thinking, interesting conversation, what do you do? I found there's 4 things that have worked in every asset class I've ever fooled with, from business to real estate, stocks, whatever. The first thing is, in basketball and in life, you got to have fundamentals. If you want a great marriage, great health, there's just fundamental stuff you do. And a fundamental analysis is just looking at the strength of an entity. So if I were to do a fundamental analysis on someone, before I loan them money, I do what the bank does. Show me your financial statement, and let's look at where you're at. And I'll look at all the candidates, I'll say, that's who I'm going to loan to, not him. Second, and that's true with corporate, am I going to buy a stock? Let me look at their financial statement. If we're going to buy a bond from a sovereign, I'm going to look at their financial statement. Now I have global fundamentals that I'm working with Bitcoin. So fundamental analysis is the name of the topic. So if you say, I want to take a class on fundamental analysis, that would be the class you would take. Number 2, technicals. That's your charts, that's your trends. Information without knowledge is of no use. It has no meaning. Information begins to have meaning when we have knowledge. So if I look at a stock chart and it's information, but it has no meaning, that means I can close a gap of education. So when I look at a stock chart, I see things, and hopefully it's just not tea leaves. I see things. You begin to get a sense of trend, and so your stocks are important. So fundamentals, technicals, technical analysis. Third, cash flow. That's about positioning. And here's good news. I don't worry about markets going up or down. That's not what worries me. What worries me is whether I'm long or short. What worries me is if we have deflation or inflation, I don't care. Am I positioned properly? I don't care which one it does. It's all opportunity if I'm positioned properly. So cash flow is, how do I position myself in terms of capital gain, cash flow, or the hedge? And then finally, there's risk management, which is the most important pillar I can tell people to study. That's your insurance, your options, your plan B, your guarantees, your exit strategies, your position sizing. It's a lot like getting on a boat. You're going to go to the muster station, and they're going to do a drill and say, these are the lifeboats. I would never, ever embark. Is it embark, disembark, whatever it is, embark.
Yeah, embark.
I would never embark without that talk. The problem with the Titanic was not that it hit an iceberg. It's not that the crew was incompetent. It's not that the ship even sank. The problem was insufficient lifeboats. And so with every investment, whether it's real estate, gold, silver, business, crypto, stocks, before we get on the boat, we have insurance and plans to get off the boat. And we take the attitude of preparation as opposed to the attitude of prediction. If the defining characteristic of these markets is us not knowing the future, don't beat your head against the wall. You can make a lot of noise predicting.
Right.
Jim Cramer does it, gets a lot of views, because people have this innate want of surety, so they love, what's your prediction? Tell me what to do. They don't like me because I say, no one knows what's going to happen. They don't want to hear that. But here's the thing, the Boy Scout in me, be prepared. You can prepare. And preparation's better than predicting anyway.
Yeah.
So those are the 4.
You got control over preparation.
Yeah. Fundamentals, technicals, cash flow, risk management, applied to any asset class, crypto as well, you'll be okay.
So, as always, you make too much sense.
I don't know. Well, we need to get my wife in on this, because I never make sense in that context right there.
You do when you're sitting in that chair, I can tell you that.
I'm going to get one of these for my house.
It's a magic chair. Yeah. The one the Wizard of Oz sits in.
No, I just need you to ask me the questions, because I need her to give me a few softballs.
Well, but I think the point is this, and you're sort of a voice of reason here, and you started the whole conversation by saying, the first thing we have to do is strip away dogma.
Yeah.
There is a fever around, crypto, and then the subcategories, of fevers that are there within the realm, if you will. And then there's, of course, people who are kind of looking down their noses saying, all those people are crazy. And I think that's almost another form of dogma.
It's an extreme.
Yeah, it's an extreme. And, but you're coming in saying, There's something here. It very likely has a future. Nobody knows exactly what that future is. And if you're going to play, manage your risk.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there, and people can search their feelings, you know, and see if they can feel the force or wisdom or whatever. There's a culture of advice because people want to know what to do. That's a little lazy.
Yeah.
Because taking advice means I don't have to read, I don't have to listen, I don't have to study, I don't have to experiment, I don't have to fail. Just give me the right advice. And Wall Street has become rich by charging you a percentage of your money because they give you the advice. See if this makes more sense. You know, my success might be determined on my own personal development in this skill. My own success will probably be determined by what I learn, my temperament that I develop, my habits that I embrace. And when I say that to people, most people start nodding their head and they're saying, you know what, this is a function of my own personal development, not trying to find the right guy to tell me what to do. You know, I've lost a lot of money in business and stocks, and I even finally had some real estate have a rough time in COVID when people quit paying rent. You know, it's like, well, guess we're not getting that money for a while. It's kicked back on since. But I've just found that with all the losses and all the mistakes, you know, I'm older now, and I have an asset column. And I always say, you know, I feel fortunate that we can go to Dairy Queen as a family and give Warren Buffett a couple bucks and buy the kids an ice cream, and that's because I've stuck with it. So even though I don't like to position myself as an encyclopedia, because I'm not, the fact that I've used those 4 pillars and learned and tried to become wise and temperament, you know, we've got something today that we can be proud of. So that's my invitation to people. Do you feel it might be right? Your success is probably going to be a function of your own personal development in these financial skills. And that'll take you home.
I think, as I said earlier, it makes all too much sense. As I appreciate your equanimity in showing up and saying, here's how I'm playing it now, and here's what I think the considerations are. And I don't see that you're placing a bet. You're just, because it's not, you're doing the opposite. You're saying I'm managing risk, and it's exciting that something's happening, but nobody knows exactly where it's going.
Hey, I'm involved. I'm practicing.
Yeah.
I've got a crypto account. I'm working on it, but I'm working on it more from a learning standpoint right now, because I got other stuff that's, you know, I got plenty of stuff. This is a thing. It's a big thing. It's something I absolutely have to know about it. All the viewers need to know about it.
Right.
Be smart, be tempered, and you'll be fine.
Well, Andy Tanner, as always, so appreciate you coming by and sharing so openly with us, and we're always the beneficiary of your experience, so thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. The Revealed series has blessed my life tremendously. I learned so much, and as someone who sees himself as a student, the experts, I don't know how you guys do it, but the people you bring in have blessed my life. So humbling to try to contribute what I've learned so far.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Don't you just love Andy Tanner? You know, whenever I sit with him and I listen to him, I always feel like, wow, I can do this. And I have to tell you, that friendly, caring person that you see on camera when we're actually filming him is the same guy that I see off camera. He's just not only a great person to interview and learn from, he's one of those rare, special, very, very passionate human beings that cares about you. So thanks for letting me share Andy Tanner with you. Trust is a really important thing when it comes to people who present, who want to teach, who put communications out, etc. And it's one of the first things that comes to my mind when I think of Mike Dillard. Mike is a really bright and thoughtful individual. There's nothing at all that's hypey about him. He's very composed, very thoughtful, and really extraordinary at communicating. And when it comes to crypto, he's one guy that I certainly trust when I listen to what he has to say about it. He learns from his own mistakes. He openly shares his mistakes. And this area of cryptocurrency and blockchain is something that he's been looking at for a while now. And when you have somebody as smart as he is looking at this consistently and writing about it and sharing that openly with the world, you want to pay attention. So when he agreed to be interviewed for this particular series, I was really excited because I knew that you would benefit from his interview. So enjoy this interview with Mike Dillard. Mike, thanks for doing this. Very much looking forward to this conversation as I follow a lot of what you're writing about crypto, and you seem to have a good handle on it. So thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
And just before we started this, my partner Jeff Hayes had told me that, well, Mike is the guy who got me to buy Bitcoin at 3,000. So so he's very happy with the advice he's received from you. And I wanted to say that up front so other people may be happy to receive your advice right now.
Awesome.
Let's just start with what got you into crypto. I mean, I know that you've got a pretty varied background as far as your business experience and things that you've done. So what led you into crypto?
Really it was the crash of 2008. I was 30 years old at that point and had built an 8-figure business for the first time in my 20s. I was making a ton of money and I had no idea what to do with it. I was spending it on cars and boats and just, stuff that a young man in his 20s would do in that position. But the crash of 2008 was a huge wake-up call for me because I saw, people like my parents and their friends lose 50% of their stock portfolio in a very short period of time. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. But what should I do with my money? Because I realized I was really wasting a big opportunity. And so I really started to study financial history. I read books like Creature from Jekyll Island and, books on gold and silver and all of the typical investing books that were big, back in those days. And it really opened my eyes to how broken the fiat currency system is, how manipulated the system is. And I was paying attention to that space, if you would, during those years. And Bitcoin, was born around 2009, 2010. And I found it and really started paying attention to it in the end of 2012, early 2013. And that was when Mt. Gox was available, which was really the first kind of crypto exchange where you could go on. It looks like a normal website and you could send a wire in and have your trading account and have Bitcoin in there. And before that, I had looked at it. And if you wanted Bitcoin, you had to mine it or you had to send some money to a stranger and they were going to send you this magic Bitcoin back. And I never really felt comfortable doing that. Unfortunately, I wish I would have. But in February of 2013, I wired $30,000 to Mt. Gox and I purchased 400 Bitcoins. It was around $75 a Bitcoin. And that kind of took my interest in. During that cycle over the next year, Bitcoin went up to, I believe, $1,200, and that gets to be quite exciting. Unfortunately, in 2014, Mt. Gox was hacked and I lost all of that Bitcoin.
Wow.
And so if you could do the math on what 400 Bitcoin is worth today, that was a very painful, experience, but it did introduce me to this industry and to this asset class. After that, I kind of lost track of it for a few years until early 2017. And that's when Ethereum was launched. And that really started to catch my interest as well. Coinbase existed at this point in time. And I started buying Ethereum at about $7 during that period. And we all know where Ethereum is today, right around $4,000 and on its way north of that. And so once I really started to see what was possible with Ethereum, that this wasn't just a token that was being traded, that this was a programmable smart contract system that other applications could be built upon, that's when I saw the big picture and I saw that this was going to revolutionize every single aspect of the world and every industry of the world. And since then, I have, I would say, 95% of my net worth in crypto, outside of a few investments in private businesses, that my friends have started or things like that. I don't own a single stock. Everything I have is in crypto, and it's obviously been one of the best investments of my life. And the good news is I think we're still only in the third inning of, what's a 9-inning game over the next 10 to 15 years. I think right now is, about 2001, 2002, after the dot-com, boom or bubble. And so it's exciting times, and there's a long road ahead of us.
With the swings that happen, are those things that you basically anticipate? In other words, You could see like, everything's recovered. There was a big pullback not long ago, and now everything's kind of recovered back up to those those old highs, or moving toward them at least at the time of this recording. And do you anticipate more of those? And do you sell off as things are coming up, and then when they dip, you rebuy, or do you just buy and hold?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm doing this round because during the bull market of 2017. That was more money than I'd ever made in my life in that quick of a time, December 2017 through January of 2018. And it was incredible to see your net worth going up by hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, day after day after day. And it will trick your brain, and it will start to train your brain and create a confirmation bias that this is going to continue to happen, because when it happens multiple days in a row, multiple weeks in a row, why would it possibly stop? Right? And you don't know when it's going to stop. And when you're getting that kind of a dopamine hit on a daily basis, your brain doesn't want to let that go. And so learning how to sell your crypto when you're doing really well is the single biggest challenge of this entire space. This is an emotional mental game that, in my opinion, you only tend to learn by experiencing it. And so I held through the entire bull market of 2017. I never sold it. You don't realize that the top is in until 3 months, 4 months after the top. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you've now lost 50+% of your returns. And so you don't want to sell because you've got to hope that it's going to go back up. And so I held every asset that I ever bought through to this day. I've never sold any crypto for fiat money and taken that and put it in my bank account. And so that was a really big educational experience for me, but I've studied crypto every single day since then. I now know what the cycles look like. I know what the cycle top indicators look like. And I know how this game is played. I know that money rotates into Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin into, the top 10 altcoins, if you will, like Ethereum. And then from there, they're going to go to the mid caps, and the money rotates down into the small caps. And then the whole thing kind of starts over again. What's interesting to see is if Bitcoin is going to continue to follow this 4-year halving cycle that everybody expects to see, I do not think that is going to be the case. And I can say that because the 3 previous 4-year halvings, if you will, that we have already seen, those cycles have not followed that 4-year program. Each cycle has lengthened by about 12 to 13 months. And so if the last cycle was a 4-year cycle from, top to top, if you will, this one is going to be probably a 5-year cycle. And so we would be looking at an actual top in Q4 of 2022. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I have no idea. But every single cycle from the very first one in 2010 to 2013 to 2017, every one of them has gotten at least a year longer than the previous one, which would suggest that this would be longer as well. And to also answer your question, I do not trade. I buy an asset and then I hold an asset. And a lot of people will try to play that rotation game. I've played around with that in the past, and every single time I did it, I lost money. It was a bad move. And so for me, I will invest a small amount. My personal strategy has been to invest a small amount of money, meaning a couple hundred, a couple $1,000s, into a large amount of projects. So I would say over the last 4 years, I put $1,000 to $10,000 into 150 different crypto assets.
Wow.
And that is because you never know which of these are going to really take over their niche and become the dominant asset in that category until, it's already happened. And so the only way to play it is to put a small amount of money over a large amount of bets. And that has allowed me to get 3, 4, 5 big winners. I invested Chainlink at 49 cents. It's now $25. I invested in Uniswap at $2. It's now in the $20 as well. And those are off their previous highs. I invested in Matic at 2 cents, and now it's $1.50. Right? I invested in Cardano at probably 5 to 10 cents. Now it's $3. And there's others that I've invested in as well that I've lost 50, 60, 70% on. And in fact, those would be probably the majority of those 150 different projects. But all you have to do is get 1 or 2, 3 right and get 100, 200, 300x. And that easily pays for all of the others that didn't do anything. And so that's how I've really approached the industry. My plan for this cycle is I will absolutely be selling the top. I'm not going to make the same mistake that I did last time. And something that I found really useful is called the Pi Cycle Top Indicator. It is something you can just type in Google and find for free. And it has called the top every single time with 100% accuracy, including the top in 2021 at $65,000, which nobody was expecting. I believe that's a mid-cycle top, but nonetheless, if you had sold, you would have been able to buy back in at half of that top. And so that really caught my eye because no one in the industry and no other indicator signaled the top at $65,000 except that particular indicator. And so once that happens, I will be selling all of my crypto into fiat. I'm going to take that fiat and I'm going to diversify it a little bit, but most of it is going to go into staking platforms like BlockFi or Celsius or Nexo, where you can currently earn 8 to 10% a year on your stable coins, whether it's Tether or USDC or whatever it may be. And, if you have it, let's just say a $10 million exit in cash, and you're making 10% a year on that money, that's 1.2, what's $1 million a year in passive income. And in the past previous cycles, 2017 specifically, it took around 13 months from the market to go from its top peak in Bitcoin to its bottom in price. And so at about 13 to 15 months, I'm going to start taking that fiat and I'm going to start averaging back into the market. And so that's my personal plan and how I'm playing the industry right now.
When you talk about staking, can you explain what that is, what that means to stake your coins?
Yeah, this is super important. I think it's one of the single most important aspects of the industry right now. And there's two ways to earn passive income on your crypto assets right now. One is called staking, and that is the new generation of blockchain platforms like Cardano or Polkadot or Solana are proof of stake blockchains. And so instead of mining with hardware and electricity like Bitcoin, you can take your Cardano tokens, for example, and you can stake them through either a wallet like Exodus Wallet or Trust Wallet, or you can stake them through some of the major crypto exchanges like Kraken or Gemini. And usually it's just with a click of a button, you can stake your assets, and it goes into a staking pool that where those people are basically validating the transactions that are running through that blockchain. And it ensures that as a validator, let's say Kraken is running a validator node, they're the big US exchange, they're helping to secure the Cardano network. And the people like myself and everybody else who've staked their Cardano coins are basically saying, hey, we promise to not cheat the system and to validate honest transactions to keep the network essentially intact and working. And in so doing, we make a 5% reward per year in return in Cardano tokens. If we were going to be nefarious, or if the person running that staking pool was going to be nefarious and try to cheat the system and run an illegal transaction through, then they would lose a portion or all of the assets that have been staked, right? So it provides a financial incentive for everybody to be a good actor, because to cheat the system means you would lose more money than you would get from cheating. So there's no incentive to do so. So staking through a regulated exchange like Kraken, I don't have any worries or risks about them doing anything, nefarious with my Cardano assets that would destroy the company. They have no incentive to do that. And so I make a 5% return on that a year just by hitting one button on my Kraken account. I'm now making 5% return. Now, the other way to earn passive income is by lending out your crypto. And this is what platforms like BlockFi, Celsius, and Nexo do. And so I can, let's say, send my Matic to my Celsius account, which is what I've done. And Matic right now pays a 10% return. Pretty amazing. And all I have to do is keep my Matic tokens in my wallet. And what Celsius is doing is they're taking my Matic tokens and they're lending them out to people who want to borrow them at an even higher interest rate. Maybe they're traders, maybe they're a hedge fund, maybe they're whatever, but they're willing to take out a loan against those crypto assets. Now, all of those crypto assets or loans are fully collateralized, meaning there's not a lot of risk. If the price of Matic drops and there's a margin call on that loan, and the person doesn't pay, their account gets liquidated. I get my assets back. There's no leverage. There's no funny business. It's a very clean, simple system that works really well. Now, what most people don't understand is that in both of these cases, you're getting paid back in the token that you are staking or that you are lending. And so right now with Matic and my Matic tokens on Celsius, making again 10% a year, right now I'm getting around 400 Matic tokens per week that are just paid out to me for keeping my Matic tokens stored in Celsius. Matic is $1.50 right now, right? So that's roughly 1,600 tokens per month that I'm getting for free times 1.5. So that's $2,400 per month in passive income. That's $2,400 a month worth of Matic tokens, 1,600 tokens. Now, here's the interesting part. Matic, again, is currently trading at $1.50. I don't think it's going to stay there. I think it's going to go up, to $5 to $10, right? So that $2,400 and Matic tokens I'm getting right now at this moment in time, if Matic, whenever it hits $10, that's now $24,000 a month I'm currently making in future value. Unbelievable, right? When you look at Cardano, right now, I'm currently making 5,000. I'm getting 5,000 Cardano ADA tokens every single month. Cardano is currently trading at $3. That's $15,000 a month in passive income. If I were to liquidate those 5,000 tokens every 30 days and take out the cash if I wanted, I'm not doing that because I think the price of Cardano is going to continue to go up. When Cardano triples and it goes from $3 to $10, or let's just say $9, that's $45,000 a month in passive income for me doing absolutely nothing right now. And so I like to hold tokens that I can stake because they're a proof of stake blockchain, or I like to hold tokens or invest in tokens that I can put on these lending platforms. What I've also seen is the proof of stake tokens like Cardano have a much less volatility. And so while we saw the market take a really big dip a few months ago, Cardano didn't take a very big dip. And that's because 70% of the entire Cardano supply is currently staked, which means it's not being traded, right? Because people are earning passive income for it. They have less incentive to want to sell it. I'm totally fine getting 5,000 Cardano tokens a month, even if the price of the token drops, because I'm not spending it right now. And so it's reduced the volatility of those projects, which has made them even more appealing. So for me, those are the types of projects that I will be investing in and continue to invest in into the future for those next cycles, because they just have a significant compounding effect that other tokens do not offer.
And I think the compounding effect is kind of the real X factor in it, right? I mean, to your point, I stake on Crack in Polkadot. And I think they compound, it's at 12% interest. And that's why I said, geez, even this thing pulls back at 12% interest. Yeah, and it's compounded, I think, twice weekly or something. So it's constantly just, compounding on there. And then, as it goes up in value, as you're describing, these become, meaningful numbers.
It's not 10%. It turns into 50, 100%.
That's right. And the idea, though, is that staking says you are not trading these coins. You're basically committing to leaving them deposited. It's almost like a CD, right? Like a certificate of deposit. You're going to make this deposit. It's going to pay you interest, but you're committing to leaving the money there. Although on Kraken with Polkadot, at least you can, if you want to unstake it, you can at any moment. So
that's a great point, Patrick. You have to see, and they'll tell you on these platforms what the terms are, because some of these blockchains or some of the platforms where you stake them, they are going to have different time constraints. And so with Cardano, to stake or unstake takes a few minutes. Probably same with Polkadot. Ethereum 2.0, if you stake your Ethereum 2.0, it's locked up until Ethereum 2.0 launches. You cannot get it back. Right. And that might launch in a year. It might launch in 3 years. And so it's a much riskier. I have a lot of Ethereum that I do not stake because I want to be able to sell it when I want to sell it. And so you want to make sure that you're definitely aware of what the staking rules and regulations or terms are for that specific asset, because it does change from asset to asset. I don't remember the other one of it, but the other name of it, but there was one that I was going to stake, but it's a month lock period. Mm-hmm. So you stake it and you can't touch it for at least 30 days. That's something I don't I don't want to participate in, right? I want that liquidity. So make sure you're aware of that for sure.
Earlier, you brought up You brought up Ethereum and talked about the fact that its platform allows for smart contracts, and people, and there's adoption of using it for this. That you have other people coming in and using it. And I've asked this question. I can't. I don't get. How can I put it? I don't want to say I don't want to say it's not a satisfying answer, but an answer that makes sense to me is, I could understand if you're saying here's a company that takes income and has a P&L, and you're buying stock because people are adopting the use of their technology, and therefore the value of that stock goes up because the company has more and more profits and so on. But there's not, with Ethereum, there's not really a company that, like when somebody decides to use their platform, how does that increase the value of Ethereum? Because they don't make money from people using their platform, do they?
It really comes down to supply and demand, right? And so, especially with the EIP, I think 1559 update that they made to the Ethereum protocol about a month ago, every transaction that takes place on the Ethereum network now burns Ethereum. So the overall supply of Ethereum is reducing by a fairly significant amount. I believe it's 1.7% per year now at the current rate. And so Ethereum used to be an inflationary crypto asset where more and more of them were just created. Now it is more deflationary, in fact, than Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has a finite number of 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. Ethereum now has, at least where it currently stands, the supply is reducing by 1.7% per year. And so there's less and less Ethereum on the market on a daily basis, but demand is growing, which means the price goes up. And at the end of the day, the people who hold the asset are the ones who experience the value. A gentleman is much smarter than I am, was talking about this the other day, but he said he owns a very successful $1 billion financial fund. And he said he's never seen anything like it before, because what crypto assets like Ethereum are allowing it to do is for the people who use the network to experience the value that is created on the network, instead of the company that sits in between, the users and the technology. And so the more people who use the network, the more value there is in the network, and the value is directly given back to the people who secure it in the form of mining, or the people who are using it in the form of asset appreciation, because they're holding it, they are participants, and therefore they're being rewarded. And so it's an interesting new economic model that is going to change the world, and it is changing the world right now, because without the middlemen like banks, which are no longer necessary, the profitability of these networks to the direct end user just becomes exponential. And that's why you're seeing Ethereum go from $7 when I bought it to now $4,000. And it's just getting started. So it's a very pretty technical concept to try to explain on the fly, but
no, I think you did that. You're the first person that's ever explained that when I asked this question, and it's fascinating. As far as saying, you're rewarded for being, what would approximate the concept of a shareholder, by holding a token. And literally, we're going to make them more scarce as adoption increases, which is the same thing as making a stock more valuable as the value of a company increases. It's actually quite genius as I think about it, and something very new and different. And I imagine that what would happen is, theoretically, it can get to a point where the only tokens that are left are just the ones that are held by people, because they can't take away tokens, like if you have them, they can't keep cutting that 1% away if that 1% is already owned. But at that point now, you got as many as you're going to have, and the value of them is pretty extraordinary. So that's a pretty fascinating concept. So thank you for at least leading me to the next step on that. So much of this is wrapping our heads around it, right? And Ethereum especially, very fascinating how they're doing that. There's so many mixed reviews about, we interviewed some people for this series who were like, crypto's going to zero, this is all a fantasy, and that kind of a thing. And then you have the Bitcoin maximalists, that it's only Bitcoin. It's
was
only
Peter Schiff one of them?
Yeah, Peter Schiff was one of them, yes. Yeah, an extremely entertaining interview. But nonetheless, it's really interesting when you take someone like yourself saying, hey, a massive majority of your investment capital is in this. So you obviously, you're bought in, literally bought in. And you see this as this isn't going anywhere. This is here to stay. And you talked a lot about altcoins. What is your view on Bitcoin?
I believe that Bitcoin is going to be the replacement for gold. So Bitcoin is going to be the global reserve currency, if you will, not necessarily reserve currency, but store value. That's a better way to put it, because it's too inefficient in its current state to be used on a daily basis, and with millions of transactions that would be required to run a financial network, let's say like Visa or credit card transactions or anything like that. It's too slow to be used as money, as currency. And you don't want to use Bitcoin as currency anyway, because it is increasing in value. It's a deflationary asset. The new supply gets cut in half every 4 years. And if you know that supply is being reduced by 50% every 48 months while demand is increasing, that means the price goes up, which means you'd have to be an absolute idiot to spend your Bitcoin and buy groceries with it, or a car, or anything else with it. And so there is zero incentive for people to use Bitcoin as currency or money, but there is an infinite amount of incentive in the form of infinite dollars that are being printed right now to hold it and use it as a store of value, which is what is taking place. And so Bitcoin is the securest network in the world, period, end of story. And it is very simple. It is not complex. It has a 10-year, 11-year track record at this point. People feel comfortable with it. They feel safe with it. They understand how to use it now. They understand how to store it securely. The laws and regulations for Wall Street and the banks and financial institutions to transact in Bitcoin are now in place, so they can legally do that. And so for me, the destiny of Bitcoin is that it will replace gold. Above and beyond that, then and I think the less Bitcoin changes, the better. It's the same reason gold has been a store value for thousands of years, because it doesn't change. People know what it is and why it works and why it has value. So I think that is actually a good thing, is that Bitcoin does not get tinkered with very much. Now, on the other hand, it is already I'll look at the exact number, but it was at some point previously, the last year, $1 trillion asset. Bitcoin was. Let's see what it is today. The market cap of Bitcoin is 950 billion, so right under $1 trillion. Gold is, I believe, currently around $10 trillion in value. So Bitcoin's upside is, roughly 10x from here. I'd say over the next 5 to 10 years, Bitcoin will hit $10 trillion in value.
Wow.
And any previous point in history, that would be an unbelievable return. A 10x return is 1,000% return over a 10-year period is the biggest win any hedge fund could ever hope for. In crypto land, that's boring. That's like, 10x, 10 years, that's no, it's not very exciting. It's not very appealing. So then we have the newer altcoins and smaller projects that are worth much less money, have much smaller market caps. And that means it takes much less money to double, triple, quadruple the price of those assets. And that's why you see the price of Dogecoin go from a penny to 90 cents this year and get a 90x. That's much more exciting for people. But there's much more volatility, right? The more money it takes, or the less money it takes to double the price, means the less money it takes to cut it in half. And so there is more risk and more volatility in those assets. But as far as Bitcoin goes, it will replace gold. It will be the new global store value. It is a better store value than gold in every single way possible. The only way that gold would become a more effective store value than Bitcoin is if the global electric grid were to go down, for an extended period of time. And if that were to happen, then I could argue gold is also worthless. And at that point, you want bullets. So when people ask me, what happens to Bitcoin if, the electric grid goes down? I'm like, the last thing that you're going to care about is what happened to your Bitcoin if the electric grid goes down. And you're not going to be able to eat your bar of gold either. So, to me, that's kind of a moot point. We will have much bigger problems if that were to ever take place.
Yep, and we already did the docuseries we called Endgame, which is prepping for that scenario. So, yeah, and those are interesting conversations in and of themselves. A big part of, I think, what is important when you're crystal ball gazing, looking into the future, is adoption rates. And I imagine because you're very analytical, that you maybe have been looking at just the amount of adoption in crypto in general and how that curve is. What does it look like right now?
So, I'm not a super analytical person. I'm the 50,000 foot. I can see the patterns. That's kind of how my brain works. But the people who are looking at the numbers, who do run hedge funds, Royal Paul is one of them. The guys in Silicon Valley who are used to looking for platforms like Facebook or Instagram, and they're looking for network effects and they're looking for adoption rates. Bitcoin and Ethereum have faster adoption rates and better network effects than any other asset that has ever been seen. Faster than Facebook, faster than the adoption of the internet, faster than the adoption of the cell phone, faster than Facebook, faster than all of them. And so that is why they are just plowing money into this asset class, because they see the growth that is happening. And the value of the more people, again, that come into the network, the more valuable the network becomes, which means the more valuable the token that runs the network becomes. Mm-hmm. And so it really becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, especially when you have a token like Ethereum now that is depreciating. Again, more demand, less supply, price goes up. Very simple concept. And it's a really interesting way that these assets have been gamified to kind of create a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. It's really, really fascinating to watch, to see how it's working out. But it incentivizes people in the right way, and so it's working.
Do you feel or observe or maybe even have knowledge of how, like you're talking about some of these bigger players that come in, like hedge funds, are people manipulating this market, basically, pumping things up, and then, selling off and then getting it to drop and then rebuying? What's going on in that realm?
100%. That's the tough side of crypto. If you're not used to it, is you have to come into this asset class with the mindset that once you invest this money, consider it gone from an emotional perspective, meaning I call it Vegas money. I'm only investing money in this industry that I'm okay with if I never see it again. I'm not leveraging my house. I'm not taking out loans. I'm not doing silly stuff, which a lot of people have done in the past, but I'm not putting my current financial situation at risk. And you have to take that mindset with it, because unlike the stock market, when you see a 10% dip in the stock market, holy smokes, the world is coming to an end. Right. That is national news. That has people running for the hills, and a 10% drop in crypto is just another day. It doesn't even register on my radar at this point. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that mindset, you're not going to survive this industry, because if you are being affected by your emotions, that means that you have invested too much. You are emotionally attached to the outcome. You have something on the line that is causing you stress and anxiety. And that is a sign that, again, you've put too much money in. If you put $10 in, who cares if you lose it, right? But if you put $100,000, $1 million in, and you actually care at that point, then you're going to make bad decisions. The market's job is to separate money from people who have weak emotional beliefs about the decision that they have made. That's what its job is to do. And there are people who have the skills and the ability and the funding to manipulate the market in order to cause situations like that to take place, in order to get people to sell so that they can buy in cheaper. We saw this at the top here in 2021, around $65,000. It matches exactly something called a Wyckoff accumulation pattern. It was written about over 100 years ago by a professional, trader, where he and his buddies would get together and they would essentially collude in order to change the market behavior and create a certain outcome in order to get people to sell off their assets so that they could buy in cheaper again. And then they create a Wyckoff accumulation pattern, which is what we've been seeing for the last 3 to 4 months. They will then start pump the market back up, and to multiply their earnings and their holdings significantly. And the end loser in that scenario are the people who put too much money in, felt too much emotion and fear around it, and they sold at they sold at the bottom, and then they buy in at the top. As we head back towards new all-time highs again, those people will buy in, and that process will continue to happen for them until the lesson is learned. And I went through that process many, many years ago, and I just learned that, hey, if I'm in the right asset class and I'm on the right side of demographics and the right side of network effects and the right side of technological innovation, all I have to do is sit on my hands and do nothing and wait, and I win. And so that is my strategy now. That's why I don't trade. That's why I don't go from one coin to another. I buy, I sit on it. And again, Matic I bought in 2018 or 19 for 2 cents. And now it's $1.50. So I had to wait 3 or 4 years for that to pay off. And during 3 of those years, it did absolutely nothing. Right. And it could have been very tempting to have taken that money and put it in another project that was going up. But I don't do that because I've had to learn this lesson the hard way. So I buy and I hold until I'm confident we're at a market top based on the indicators that I'm now aware of. And that will be my move. And I will continue to make these macro decisions during all of these cycles every, again, 4, 5, 6 years for the next 20 years. And honestly, if you make it through 2 of these cycles, 2 of these cycles, you can take yourself from $50,000 to $100,000 to 5 to 10 million in one cycle. And in 2 cycles, you can go from 5 to 10 million to 50 to 100 million or more, right? Because even if you just invested in Bitcoin at the bottom during this cycle, when Bitcoin hit $3,800 and you sold at 65,000, or, now I think it'll probably hit $100,000. Let's say it hits $100,000. That's roughly a 30x on your money. So if you had $1 million from the previous cycle that you started off with 50 grand and you grew that to $1 million, and then you just invested in Bitcoin and did nothing else, you've now got $30 million in the bank. So, there's just a couple of rules that you need to follow. Patience is the biggest, and walking away from the volatility, not paying attention to it, understanding that's part of the game. And go on and focus on the rest of your life. And if you'll invest in crypto assets, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or whatever, and just wait 5 years, you're going to be in a really good spot.
Yeah. So basically, your philosophy is set it and forget it. Just set it up and like you said, it's the one bet that you placed. 3 years it did nothing, but you still didn't react to it. You just let it ride, and then you went for, would you say 2 cents to $1.50 or something? I mean, it's extraordinary.
Yeah. So what? 75x return?
Yeah.
and that's not over yet. I think it'll hit $10 by the end of this cycle. So that'll be a 750x return.
Wow. Amazing. Well, this has been really informative, Mike. And I love your rationale and the way that you approach things, but even more so the way that you explain things, because this can be a very tricky and confusing world, but when you explain it, it just all makes sense. So I appreciate your methodology in communicating it. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Yeah. At the end of the day, all you need to do is bet on technology and bet on future development. And if you bet on technology that is improving the world and that is being adopted and recognized by people for doing so, meaning it's growing, all you have to do is sit there and set it and forget it. It's like investing in Amazon. It's like investing in Tesla right now. If I wasn't investing in crypto, I'd be investing in Tesla. They're changing the world in a massive way, and they're the fastest growing car company in history. All you have to do is put your money in there and go do something else for 10 years, and you're going to be ridiculously wealthy. And so, that's my primary message for folks, is just set it and forget it, and you're going to be just fine.
Beautiful. Well, again, thanks so much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all so much.
That's it for my interview with Mike Dillard. Again, Mike is just this guy that is very thoughtful, very intelligent, and very trustworthy. I'm glad that I could share his information, his ideas with you right here. Thanks for being here. completes episode 1 of our 9-part docuseries, Crypto Revealed. As you can see, we're off to a great start, but let me tell you, there's a lot of ground to cover, and what's coming is going to really stimulate and excite you. Again, I want to remind you, we're still in the previewing period right at the very beginning of it, so it's a great time to share. Let other people know about this free docuseries so they can learn about cryptocurrency also. I think everybody who bothers to invest a little bit of time in this is going to get a lot in return. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in episode 2.
If you're gonna get in crypto, you gotta have passion and you gotta have conviction. If you don't have those two things to where you believe in blockchain technology, then I would tell you not to invest in it at all, because you're gonna sell at the wrong time, you're gonna lose all your money. But if you understand that in 100 years from now, there's a 0% chance we're gonna be trading pieces of paper and pieces of metal and it's shaped in a circle to do business, and you understand everything is going digital, then you know what's coming. You understand that's the future. There's no way 100 years from now, we're trading paper.
No matter how much we demand it, its supply remains fixed. That's what gold was historically, and that's what Bitcoin is essentially perfected by being the first fixed supply asset in human history. And this is a real breakthrough. Bitcoin is an invention, clearly, but I think it has actually led us to the discovery of absolute scarcity for money. I think people are going to be sort of forced into Bitcoin as the existing system implodes.
We're witnessing another technological revolution, which is Bitcoin, this decentralized technology. And these happen about every 50 years. So we're printing unlimited amounts of money and it's distorting all these markets. So where the price signal is so messed up, the world isn't operating correctly anymore. We finally have a tool. We finally have a way that we can win.